Good day. Should I sound like Richard Hart? Hello, everybody. I can't wait to hear that. Can't wait to hear him say that someday again. Or maybe we won't. I hope everybody's doing good. I'm doing good. I guess I can make myself larger. Not like you guys want to see me, but you guys have to. Sorry. So what's shaking? 44 people signed up to be in spaces today. And as usual, I'm just I get 90% ready and then I finish up getting ready while I'm live. Just how it goes. And please do go follow that guy in X, Cali Producer. I'm going to find this. There it is. Yeah. All right, guys. Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing good. Doing good. Welcome in, Stylus. I was just thinking about Stylus. I'm like, she comes in every Saturday spaces. And I was like, I bet she could be here again. Sure enough. Well done.
She on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah. Some people on YouTube, some people on X. I think some people are on both, and that's okay too. How are you doing this fine Saturday morning?
Doing good.
Cool.
It's been a busy week.
I heard that, and I bet. Yeah, you're probably ready for some rest, man.
Yeah, I'm ready for a little rest. Kind of ready to get out. I'm hoping to get out of the house a little bit today and maybe do something. I feel pretty cooped up.
Are you gonna go play pickleball?
Probably can't play pickleball because now that my wife has 2 kids to watch, can't really put that on her unless someone helps her watch the kids. But I was thinking maybe just something, all of us together, Yeah. Go to a park or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Load up the baby buggies and go for a walk in the park. Or they got the sling things for infants, Oh
yeah, we've been using the sling thing, that's for sure.
Sling thing. Yeah. Well, you are to be congratulated, and Crypto Stylist congratulates you.
Thank you, Crypto Stylist. And thank you, Banana.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you forget once you have like a 1.5-year-old how small they are.
I know. They're so tiny. Yeah.
We had a pretty big one though, Banana. 9.5 pounds.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Didn't strike me as 9.5 pounds. I mean, yeah, man. That's somewhere in the gene pool, I suppose.
Yeah, my wife's family, they're a little bit like broader than me, but I'm pretty decently tall, and my family's decently tall, but more of a skinnier build. So it's probably the combo of the both, right?
Yes. Yep. I saw that same thing in my kids. Like I saw my wife's bloodline come through my kids, and with their build and their height and all that stuff. Well, people are coming in. How many we got on Twitter? We got a handful. It's like 16 or so. And how many on YouTube? 12. So we got 30 people in here. Well, things have been starting to move this week. I mean, from my perspective, you know, Bitcoin went up to 95 in that area. 90, I think it was up in that. Was it up to 98,000 at some point? I should pull it up and just speak from the
pull
chart.
it up. Yeah, let's see where it's at.
I think the high was like 95,900, I believe.
Okay.
Depends on the too. The wicks might be different on different.
Yep. That you could round that to 96. So that's good. That's good. Positive. We had a huge green candle on the 22nd, so 4 days ago. And I don't know what prompted that. Could be just the market, but that was positive. And then let's see, Pulse. Oh, the SEC thing happened this week. You know, that was that Monday? I think Monday afternoon is when I saw that. I saw it reflected in the chart. I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Went over to Twitter, and sure enough, Richard Hart had beat the SEC. So that was very positive news. Big relief for everybody.
Definitely a big relief. I feel like we're working in the right direction here on PulseChain finally. If you look at the chart, we've kind of found the bottom a few weeks ago, and we've been slowly grinding upwards.
Mm-hmm.
The good news of the SEC dropping the case. It's not like an instant jump, right? Not a huge instant jump, but it feels like we're finally working in the right direction.
Yeah. Another thing I've noticed too is human emotions coming out, and it's a bottom indicator, like despair. People like really fretting and vocally, not just one-on-one, but in the openly in chats, I've seen people just they're like, what do I do? What's going on? What do you guys think? And and I refrain from giving advice, but to me, that's a good sign of us reaching the bottom. And it's also a sign to, that's where the opportunity is. When people start crying, you want to start buying those tokens. And I don't mean that unkindly. I mean, all of us have certain levels that we put up with, and I'm not putting anybody down. We're all humans here. It's just some of us are going to weather those storms a little better than others. And those are the ones that need to be an encouragement to the ones that are having a bit of a hard time.
Yeah, the volatility of crypto definitely gives you amazing opportunity on assets that technically probably shouldn't go down as deep as they should, but due to everything being so fractionalized, it actually gives you prices that are higher than they possibly should go and prices lower than they possibly should go, which if you play the cards right, you could really take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
it's just really hard to emotionally, right? Like you have to really take the emotions out of it and believe in the product that, have conviction in your plays. Like I feel like a lot of time people will get into things with actually no conviction in the play. But if you have a lot of conviction in the play and you believe in it, when the prices are high, you could recognize prices are high and feel good about it, obviously. But then when prices go low, that really does equal a great opportunity because of the volatility and the fractionalized nature of crypto. The prices tend to go lower than they should as far as what the product is. And that's just opportunity, right? Because you can take advantage of that low price and then possibly when prices go back up, they might even go higher than structurally they should, because everything's fractionalized and FOMO kicks in, and that could be the opportunity that you take profits, right? If you play your cards right, you can keep massive bags and take a little profits here and there, and better your life in real life, take advantage of the low prices when they come again. You know, it's definitely hard to play those cards right because of emotions and stuff like that. But I feel like pTGC and UFO make it a lot easier due to the fact that we have a few other things to lean on, like the machine and the fact that you're technically DCAing at every level, right? Like right now, we're all technically DCAing right now, just getting drips of the token into our wallets. And then when prices go back up, you know, maybe you look at those drips into your wallets like, oh, I was DCAing that whole bottom. Like I can actually pull little profits out of the top here, and I don't even need to even touch my initial. So I'm never even tapping into my initial, what I put in, or, you know, however you want to look at it. Maybe you do tap into some of your initial. Maybe you don't touch any of it. Maybe the next high is not even the number that you're looking to hit. Maybe you want to hit a number that's coming 2 years from now, right? That's the funny thing about crypto is we like in our head to pretend that, you know, like, oh, you know, I'm investing. But a lot of times in the real world, when you invest, like you never even plan on touching that money. All you're wanting that money to do is work for you. You feel confident in the plays. You have conviction in the plays that you put those into, and you're willing to sit it out for 5 to 10 years. But for some reason in crypto, due to the nature of a lot of meme coins, a lot of rug pulls, a lot of things dying, 99% of things dying, people like have like a month timeline. And really the month timeline is good with the products that are not good. But then you kind of ask yourself like, well, why did I even get in that product if I didn't even think the product was not good? But if you legitimately find like a product you have conviction in and believe in, I think it's nice to step back a little bit and have a little bit of conviction long term in that play, because the real gains is literally waiting that time out. Obviously, if you're good at trading, you can double, triple your bag really, really quick, selling tops and buying bottoms. But the truth is most people aren't, right? And that's why it's sometimes better for most people just to sit on their hands and wait for their play to play out. Think about like someone who, you know, we have like different booms, and, you know, 100 years ago, gold. But then like we had stocks, and then like more recently, like web-based or internet company stocks like Apple. Like if you found Apple and you had the mindset of crypto and you're like, ooh, on a 2x, I'm going to take all these profits. It's like, well, then you would have missed on hundreds of X's. Like you look at the people who got Apple stocks 15 years ago, and they're sitting pretty good right now. Not because they sold on a double, because they held on to their stocks, right?
Yep. I onboard.
The hard part's finding the right products.
Yeah. Speaking of the right products, I helped somebody onboard this week, and her value is sitting in Pulse until we get a wallet. And then, but in the meantime, I've been thinking about and researching just different assets we can get her into. And I just keep coming back to, you know, and I don't know what else is going on other chains. So she's kind of getting what she's paying for, which I'm doing all this for free. So I'm just it just keeps coming back to the Grays currencies. I'm like, well, what are the best assets on PulseChain? Hex, Pulse, PulseX, you know, Ink. Those are all excellent speculative plays. But I'm like, she can hold all of those by holding the Grays currency. So I just keep coming back to those. And that's probably where I'm going to plant her. And she doesn't know anything. She really doesn't. And but the burden is on me to do the best that I can with this money that she says that she hands to me and says, hey, go make something with this. I'm like, whoa, that's a weight, dude. But I just keep coming back to the Grays currencies for myself and this onboard.
Yeah, that's pretty cool for a person like her, though, to have someone in real life that is so involved with crypto, because the journey to get to like even right here on crypto Twitter takes a little bit of work and a little bit of education.
Yeah. So
like
yeah,
even to get on PulseChain, if you don't have someone willing to like hands-on walk you through it and get you onto it, it takes hours and hours and hours of education just to get to that point. I think that's one of the hardest things about PulseChain right now is you're not onboarding a normal person without like an in real life walkthrough.
yeah. I'm not even walking this person through anything. I'm just
it's hard.
doing it all.
Yeah, it's hard. You do have to just do it all and just give them their computer back and say, "Don't touch it. Let me know when you want to touch it."
Yeah. Yep. So I was looking at so Monday came around, SEC case is dismissed, and the pulse chart turns green. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, because I always try to be honest. When I saw it turn green, my thought was, okay, fake pump, buy the rumor, sell the news, or whatever that thing is. And I was thinking, it's having been in the bear market for 3 years, I'm used to things pumping and pulling back. But I'm looking at the chart right now, and we ran up. Let me see. We ran up 21%, and we are right now 3% above that 21%. So we didn't pull back anything, significant, and I'm very happy about that. And the sentiment that I'm getting is that, this could be it. Like no more shakeouts.
Well, I think you already had that, buy the rumor, sell the news when the course case was first one, but then there was the overhanging fruit of, well, there could be another 30-day extension. Oh, now there is a 30-day extension. Now this is kind of the final, nail in the coffin. So no more extensions. I think a lot of people got shaken out on the pump and dumps trying to trade lows. And I think a lot of people have bear market PTSD and crypto in general. Just like you said, they're just like, oh, it'll pump, it's going to retrace, so they're going to take profits, or they didn't buy, they'll wait for another dip. And at some point, people forget how quickly momentum can shift in crypto and how fast things can go up. And that's where they get left behind. That's where they get left with the cash, and that's what creates market tops, because people have to FOMO in at some point. So we'll see if that was a major low for PulseChain. It would make sense for it to be if there was a major low on Ethereum back then as well. And it would be nice if Richard Hart can start talking more. Maybe he gets live, or if we get information that the Interpol stuff is settled as well. Especially if it's just a tax thing on Interpol. Maybe Richard Hart decides to pay that or get that settled with his lawyers. We'll see what happens here in the near future.
Yep. Because that's the next thing on the agenda, if you will, is the Interpol. We still got to get to that.
Yeah, the Interpol thing is probably a fear for Richard as well, because, that's another one, just like the SEC would have came back to the United States, SEC could arrest him. If he goes anywhere Interpol is, which is, global, international organization, he might have fear of getting arrested. So I doubt he shows his face or does live streams until that gets settled. But again, that's kind of a weird scenario for that to be posted, because it's tax related, and Interpol usually doesn't post tax related stuff for that. But that's why with it being tax related, he's really got all that money. I know he likes to beat people, but I don't know what they're asking for to settle up. Maybe he just pays it off and gets it over with. Who knows?
Yeah, I hope he's working with his attorneys on that Interpol thing, and I suspect he probably is.
Yeah, Banana, if I recall, I don't think he's ever addressed that.
No, I don't think he has either. And he obviously addressed the SEC and stuff a lot. And posted on the SEC post that's related to crypto as well.
Yeah, that's why I kind of brought it up, is he seemed pretty on it to report on the SEC stuff, but on the Interpol stuff, I've never even seen him really mention it. Maybe when he talked about being the most wanted, like maybe that was a hint towards it, but it wasn't directly like brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most was definitely connected with the Interpol stuff. And by the way, guys, I haven't had this conversation very much, but I suspect that a lot of that Interpol stuff is completely, just like the SEC stuff, completely blown out of proportion. That's my opinion.
Upper powers wanting their piece of the pie.
Yeah, that's kind of, what I said as well, is normally Interpol's not doing global notices for arrest warrants for tax stuff. Normally Interpol is for way more severe cases. So that's why it was kind of interesting, the timing of that being announced by Interpol. Maybe that's because of the SEC stuff in the headline and they're trying to get their piece of the pie, like you said. And also, from my understanding, it's just money, it's tax stuff. So hopefully the lawyers or Richard or whatever sort that out, see what's owed, settle up and just move on. If I was in his shoes, I know he wants to win everything. If I had as much money as he has, to just have that, weight off my back, get it paid off, and now I can travel freely again, and I'm not wanted by Interpol or SEC or anything. That's what I would want. That would be a big, ego boost to him too, because if he's free to do whatever, he can go do conferences and or live shows or get on people's channels again and just be like, I'm back, bitches, and who was right, me all along. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important, right? If you could have all the money in the world, you can have a million millionaires, but if you can't even leave a hotel room in a random country, what's the point? Like, you want to be free, free to move, free to go on vacation, free to hang out with friends, free to go to nice dinners. That's like the thing I find interesting, right? Is like, for so many months now, like, you would think he would have been spotted somewhere out at dinner doing this or doing this, and there'd be like a leaked photo from some Mexican somewhere seeing him in public, but there's just nothing. So what's that tell me? He's hiding out in some house somewhere, and every meal is getting cooked for him there, and he's not really going out in public. And
definitely like Snowden it up right now. He is locked down. Because the other thing too is, like you said, he doesn't really have the freedom, and he likes going out shopping in the stores. We all saw that. He has nice cars and wants to drive those. He ain't driving those because that's just a red flag on your back. So, yeah, I mean, sad life to be locked up like that. Imagine when COVID first happened and you guys are working from home and you're all locked up. Now do that for 2, 3, 4 years while you're a billionaire and trying to build a company at the same time, and that doesn't seem very fun to me. And you got everybody hating on you because we're not 100x sack price and this, that, and the other. Like I said, that doesn't feel very free or very fun. So, we'll see what happens. I hope he shores it up. Obviously, that's greedy because he'll pump all of our bags. But also, like you said, for him, it's like he'll have much more fun building this network and building this community if he's actually get out and about and do stuff and do videos and do content and do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, not even even take away the building the company, just to enjoy your life a little bit, right? Hang out with friends and family, I think is important too, to live a fulfilling and happy life. And it seems like he's getting suppressed from doing those things right now. So hopefully he not only tries to, obviously win the SEC case and figure out this Interpol stuff for our own bags, the greedy side thinking, but the non-greedy side, like just thinking about him as a good human being, is we want him to be able to have freedom of movement, be able to go wherever he wants to go and see whoever he wants to see with, the remaining time in his life, especially with him still being somewhat young and not old to where his body's not like given out on him quite yet. Hopefully he gets to enjoy the last 20 years of like his body being decent and his parents being around and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I know. His mom's been saying she needs another bidet and he can't get over there to install it for her. So.
He could find a handyman somewhere that'll do it for him.
I guess we want to circle back to, what's going on with pTGC and how is the Dow funds looking, and what are you guys working on behind the scenes website and everything else. That's what I would like to touch on. I put out a little TA video yesterday. I know we're not really talking about price speculation, whatever, but we're coiling up here in between the moving averages, just like we saw with Bitcoin before the major breakout. And the Dow had a lot of funds, so it'll be interesting to see what the PulseChain blue chips do over the next few days if the Dow deploys more funds and price can get above that 300 moving average. It looks like we put in yet another higher low, and the price is going to continue to march higher. So that's something to be excited for, and something that looks pretty good on the chart structure.
Yeah, the Dow still has a decent amount of funds. I need to look up the exact numbers, but I would assume it's around, if you added them all up, maybe 7 to 8 billion pulse. Again, I'm just guessing. I need to look. And that's the marketing wallet and the Dow smart contract combined. In the last few weeks, we've been doing a decent amount of buy and burns at these low levels, and it's been eating up a decent amount of the supply due to these prices being pretty cheap for pTGC. It just makes it so the Dow technically can get more tokens off the market. I'm going to look at, I don't know the exact day, maybe Banana knows, but most recently we passed the 12% of the supply bought and burned, and it seemed like we were in the 11 to 12% of the supply for a good amount of months, right? This is when pTGC started going up in price, probably hit its all-time high, which obviously made tokens 4 or 5 times more the amount per token, so it's harder to buy and burn portions of the supply. But in the last, let's say it's 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I don't know the exact time, but let's say 2 weeks, we have bought and burned 0.25% of the supply. So we're at 12.25% of the supply of pTGC now. So we've been buying and burning a good chunk of pTGC tokens. I'd say it was probably around $200,000 to $300,000 injected into pTGC's chart, and then the tokens burned. Basic supply and demand principles. That's the demand, and then we're also reducing the supply, which over time will just push the price upwards. But moving forward with the Dow, I personally think we're going to be looking more at the buy and burn side, right? Like we've built up a lot of LP. We got the RH tickers, and I'm sure we'll constantly always add to the RH tickers. We also have some of the more speculative plays, like a good chunk of the tokens Richard launched on Pump.Tires when Pump.Tires launched. So we got like the main one most, and then we got a few of the more speculative ones as well, which those could run a decent couple X's up very, very easily, and then we could generate revenue off of those. So those are our more like speculative revenue generation sources. So I feel like the machine is pretty set up for success, in my opinion. Like obviously if another blue chip pops out of nowhere and we need to grab some LP with it, we'll act with the Dow and do that. But as of right now, our web looks pretty nice as far as having the blue chips of PulseChain in it, and they're generating revenue just fine. And now I think it's, let's look at what supplies left on the market. I think it's, what was it, like 10 billion? I saw a chart for it on Kong's website, but I think 10 billion pTGC are on the market to purchase, right? So that's, if no one's sold right now, that's what's in LP able to purchase. And our Dow is sitting there ready to pretty much say like, okay, I'm going to start buying at this every single day, right? And if it buys at it every single day, sooner or later that has to equal price appreciation, or existing holders will sell into those buys, but that will just give the Dow more cheap price pTGC to continuously remove off the market, and eventually that coil effect becomes very, very strong and creates a pop.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of what we've been doing over the past couple months here, but more recently in the past week, where we're really filling up in between these well, I'm seeing pretty low volumes on PulseChain. The PulseChain blue chips are going a little green. When I'm tracking, who's selling and what, a lot of, not whales, but people have sold out their full pTGC bags down here, and the Dow's really counteracted it with buybacks and burns. And I'm seeing a lot of whales compounding their holdings. And that happens during cycles because people are always chasing the next shiny object or the next pump tires or whatever it may be. But just remember that pTGC is kind of serving as that index, grabbing the liquidity pools with some of these shiny objects, and you're going to win. You're going to sleep a lot better at night, and you're going to have a lot higher potential for a guaranteed win by going with pTGC. So if you want to chase the shiny objects or chase pump tires, take it for somebody who's been here multiple cycles. Do that, with 1% of your pTGC bag. Don't do that with your whole bag, because you're going to get caught trying to rotate and be like, oh, I can get back to pTGC after this 10x's, and then that goes to zero. pTGC moons, and you're left with dust. That's happened to me. I've been here for a long time. You get cocky, you think you can't lose, you do full bag rotations, and you get left behind on the high conviction plays, on the low risk, high potential plays that you really should maintain exposure to. So I like what I'm seeing at the consolidation at these lows. I think PulseChain major low is in, and every time PulseChain moves, we've seen pTGC really lag behind for a bit and then explode higher and start to really outperform as everything heats up.
Yeah, that's one thing, I was kind of touching base on this earlier with crypto, is people really tend to love to take their mortgage money or their investment money and take it to the casino, because they think they're going to do a quick flip and then have twice as much investment money to come back to. And the truth is just, if you look at track records of most people, it's not the easiest thing to go and make a quick 2x flip, 5x quick flip in a matter of a couple days. If that was the easiest thing in the world, I obviously think people wouldn't need to pull from their pTGC to do so. They would just have a stack of funds that they just keep flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping. So, just remember, what portions of your bags is, your casino money bags and your investment money bags. And if you are good at the casino, you shouldn't need to tap into the investment money bags, because you should be good at gambling and you should actually be able to pull profits into the investment. A lot of the times you see it the opposite way, though, right? Is people run out of the gambling funds because the casino's rigged against you. So then they start tapping into their more long-term investment funds to fuel their gambling, thinking they're going to get the next hit. And it ultimately usually just drains your investment fund as well, making it to where you then start doubling down even more and more and more, making it so you drain more and more and more, and you have to reevaluate your whole crypto experience. But everyone's going to do whatever they're going to do, right? A lot of people, even the long-term people in pTGC, get antsy, right? They want things to change in a few months, and sometimes the market is just not going to give you what you want. But I've been looking at the machine, and I think the machine's doing exactly what the machine's supposed to do. And it seems like in the last few weeks, we've been turning on the buy and burn, right? The Dow's been turning on the buy and burn. And you have to keep in mind, the buy and burn from the Dow hasn't been turned on for pretty much the existence of pTGC. We've been doing buy and burns here and there with the Dow, but the main focus for the last year and a half with the Dow was LP ads. We wanted to build up the PulseX LP. So when PulseX runs, we generate revenue off of that. The Pulse LP, the Ink LP, the Hex LP, getting some of these more speculative plays in our web also, because those are good value generation sorts, especially with a lot of value in the past being generated from our PDI play. And obviously there's uncertainty around that play now. So we had to put a little bit of funds towards Most and Pump, right? The meme coins that RH is connected to. All those things cost money, but now we're kind of sitting back and be like, okay, we're getting to the point where it's time to turn on the buy and burn from the Dow. And it's crazy to think about that point actually hasn't been turned on ever in the existence of pTGC, besides small windows, right? There's been weeks where we've been doing some buy and burns, just like how we just did a heavy week of buy and burns a couple weeks ago. But there hasn't been a point where we were just like, hey, we're going to hit buy and burns for 6 months straight. And I'm excited to see what that amount of buy and burns, if that really starts to show on the chart. In the past, we've obviously made huge moves up without focusing on the buy and burn. And the buy and burn's cool because it's basic economics. It's reducing supply and increasing demand, and that forces price upwards mechanically. Obviously, people can sell into it, etc. Market could just not move, and we could be going down into a bear market, but market conditions look like we're possibly going to see a good 6 months. PulseChain looks primed, ready to go. pTGC looks primed, ready to go.
I think that's the alpha right there. You just said you're looking to do this long window, focusing on buy and burns, meaning you think the LPs are already in place. You can still add some other small LPs if other new hot projects get launched on PulseChain. We're already seeing some new really popular projects launching on PulseChain and deciding to add pTGC LP themselves. That trend continues. There's going to be more LP created for pTGC without the DAO having to do it. Other projects will do it, and you can continue focusing on the buying burn. You're saying some people get antsy when they're in investments, and they do. That's why people who had Bitcoin in 2016 don't have it today, and it's up from $1,000 to $100,000. But what I will say is, if you zoom out, even though if you look close at the pTGC chart, like, it hasn't moved much in the past couple months, but if you zoom out, it's up over 70% off the low, while burning 0.33% of the total supply and producing 10% APY for holding. So, put in perspective, everybody's hyped up on Bitcoin's move. Holy cow, this is crazy. Bitcoin's up 25%, hasn't burned any of its tokens, and presented you 0% APY. So, when you start to look at it that way, it's kind of a numbers game. People, when Bitcoin moves up $1,000, like, holy cow, it's $1,000. But look at the percentage moves, look at the percentage gains. And, pTGC isn't a micro cap anymore. It's a $90 million project. It's starting to get into that mid-cap territory where you can really sleep at night. You don't need to worry about, hey, do I need to sell it here? Do I need to sell it there? You kind of let it do its thing. You can compound the APR, whether you're holding, staking, locking, and understand that it's giving you exposure to all the best assets on PulseChain. So if you're a PulseChain believer and a Richard Hart believer, and you come from any kind of traditional background, pTGC just looks like a supercharged mutual fund or index that's really going to benefit from the upside that PulseChain has coming in the near future.
Yeah, I think, the whole idea, Bitcoin's a good thing to bring up, right? Bitcoin has been pretty much the best performing asset for the last 10 years compared to any stock, compared to gold, right? It's been probably one of the best places to put money ever. I'm sure you could have done startup, and done a bunch of startups, but as far as putting value and just literally financial freedom, you put money there and you can just walk away. You don't even need to build anything. It's just money working for you and increasing. It's been probably the best place to go. But people tend to forget, even the design of Bitcoin is currently inflationary, right? The reason you have inflation is you are making the assumption that more people are coming in, and you want the distribution of the tokens to still be spread out with not maximum price appreciation to make it, and you have to pay for the blocks, etc. But the cool, and this is with fiat, right? With fiat, the human population is increasing, so they can actually print fiat to keep the dollar value currently at the same value. So the buying power is the same. Obviously, they're printing too much, which decreases the dollar value. But we can use all of these same ideas with assets and actually set up an asset to go up as much as we can mechanically actually drive it up, right? By heavily reducing the supply with every single transaction. Yeah, that technically doesn't make it the best asset for transactions, right? But pTGC is not made for transactions. It's actually made to store value. And when you're storing value in an asset, you want that asset to be more scarce. Imagine gold, for example. If you had gold and one day there was there is no more gold in the earth, right? We can't mine any more gold. Well, what's that going to do for gold price? It's going to skyrocket it. The reason why it would skyrocket right on that news is because everyone actually gives value to gold based on its properties, its scarcity, the fact that there's so much liquidity there with it. Like there's always a market to buy and sell. It's very sustainable. But pTGC is still gaining that side of it, right? People are still learning about it. It's still proving itself. But the main factor is there will never be any more of it. What's on the market is there, and it's decreasing every single day. The part that it's kind of earning right now is the part that, hey, this will be here in 5 years. This will be here in 10 years. This is the part that Bitcoin's already earned, ETH has already earned, like the proving the fact that this will thrive for a very, very long time, if not forever. pTGC is still in that learning curve, but mechanically and mathematically, the design is set up to technically outperform all this stuff.
Go ahead, Coondog.
How you going, Nick? Zen? Banana team?
Yeah, I hear you. What's up, Coondog?
Just thought I'd add to that as well. I mean, I'm a man who likes to look at the charts and just look at history and what's happened. And looking at, just focusing on the pTGC chart and when we went on our last run from a $6 million market cap, and I'll give you an exact date here. It's the 23rd of August, 2024. There are a few things at play there that really sort of, if you go back and have a look at that date and have a look at, how we started running as a community, as an asset, it wasn't reliant on a few main factors that pretty much 99% of other cryptos rely on. Number one, the layer one chain wasn't pumping at that point. Number two, any of the assets that we are currently tied against in liquidity or, were tied back then weren't running either. So I just love talking about this because this leads into the conversation, Nick, that you were sort of leaning into towards before, and Zen, you were speaking about supply shock. So I put this down to the fact that the DAO, the machine itself, works in the background, and you've got, the price appreciation in the chart goes up because of the key reason is you've got more buyers and sellers, and you've got more demand versus supply or whatever it might be. And that buy and burn and the DAO and the machine in the background works at that so well that there are times, and I remember looking at it at that stage, and we didn't have a huge amount of buyers coming in at that point, which kind of meant that the price didn't reflect the supply, and then the shock on the chart started happening, and then everyone started waking up to the fact that this is an amazing asset and then started buying into it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is everyone get excited because you can't think you can time it. It can start going at any time, especially this asset, because of the fact that that people realize the advantage of holding this. You've got a lot less sellers in this asset than anything else. Yeah, sure, Nick. There's some sellers there the last couple of weeks that have taken profits and everything else, and I think that's where the DAO's really sort of been able to counteract that, and that's why it's performing at a holding level so well now. But yeah, get excited because from that $6 million market cap, when we started pumping, PulseChain wasn't pumping, PDI wasn't pumping, yet pTGC just started rocketing up, and the buys started coming in after that. So yeah, very exciting.
I want to read a post by a gentleman that I found. I found this post yesterday on Twitter, and I'm just getting it pulled up. His name is Cali Producer. I'll drop his Twitter handle in the chat, guys, and if you would follow him, he could use some followers. He had 66 yesterday when I started following him. He has 88 now. I'd like to see him up over 100. There's the link in the chat. Cali Producer, SD. I'll read his post. Let me find it. Okay. He says, pTGC isn't just another crypto project. It's a case study in resilience, a thread on leadership, community, and why I chose to invest in pTGC, inspired by The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, a book. There's a story in the book where Ben's company, Loud Cloud, was burning millions per month. He had to lay off friends, answer angry investors, and somehow keep everything moving forward. That moment felt like the end, but it became the beginning. That story mirrors what pTGC's founder and dev team have faced: bear market silence, volatility, criticism, pressure. But instead of folding, they showed up and kept building, just like Ben did. That's what leadership should look like in crypto. It's not just launching a token, it's surviving the storm after the hype dies down. That's where 99% fail. pTGC hasn't and never will. But it's not just the founder. pTGC has a team that continues to study, build, and innovate behind the scenes, and a community that holds strong through it all, even when things are quiet, even when no one is watching. In The Hard Things About Hard Things, Ben says, great CEOs face the pain. They deal with the sleepless nights, the lost deals, the impossible choices. That's the DNA of pTGC. It's not just hype, it's hard-earned conviction. So why did I invest in pTGC? Because I'm not just betting on a chart. I'm betting on the people behind it. A founder who leads with clarity, a team that executes with integrity, a community that believes. In crypto, hype gets you attention, but grit gets you legacy. pTGC is being built like the companies that last, by people who understand the hard things. And that's why I believe in it. This is your chance to be a part of a long-lasting legacy. pTGC, built to last, on PulseChain. Don't miss this opportunity. See you all in the promised land. Love that post. It crushed my heart a couple of times. But the first 2 times I read it, it really squeezed my heart. And that was so well done, Cali producer. Well said.
Yeah, awesome words, Banana. I reckon. But you don't have a lot of cryptos where you've got the teams so transparently working in the background and making sure that the machine that's been launched on the market that was 100% complete at launch. Everyone seems to forget that most cryptos have a timeline. They've got we're going to do this in 6 months. We're going to do this in 12 months. You know, it's going to achieve this in 1.5 years and 2 years. Whereas this, what then team created, you know, was a finished product, and a finished product that adapts to situations. And that's where the working in the background with the team is just awesome to see.
And I, for one, I think I'm starting to see played out what I've heard from the beginning of my time in the Grays currencies, and that other projects come along and, you know, emulate the Grays. And some of those projects are still here and some of them aren't. But
yeah, and Banana, there are like I've noticed in the last maybe 2 to 4 weeks, there are new projects hitting the market that are trying to really emulate the winnings of and the coattails of what this ecosystem has already been able to achieve. So there's what people would, some, you know, like newer investors would think are shinier objects out there. But if you just understand where and what this ecosystem really is and what it's doing and how good of a product it is, then I think you mentioned it before, Banana. It's like you don't want to give up your golden goose for something that hasn't been tried and tested. And then, you know, it's unfortunate because most times out of 10, you work out in 6 or 12 months' time that product that you were so excited about at its launch or at inception doesn't end up being what you expected to be. But
yeah,
this one is. So, yeah, couldn't have said it better.
Yes. And there are some things that you want to look at when you're looking at some of these shiny objects. You know, are the contracts renounced? You know, where's the LP? Is it burnt LP, or is it, you know, what is the state that the LP is in, right?
Right, absolutely.
And of course, your founder, your community, other tokenomics, those sort of things you need to look at. And we've got all the goods over in the Grace currencies.
Totally, man. And you know what? Just going back to the LP, like, I don't know how people don't get so excited about this. Every time I even think about it, I get excited. The Grace has been able to take advantage of a market when no other tokens were really taking advantage of it. And I say that in a way that when pTGC launched, and its mission statement almost, by wanting to build the foundations and build huge liquidity pools with the strong assets in this ecosystem, they were able to do it at a time where all those assets were so cheap, and still obviously are so cheap. But I guess the bags that have been built, they've been built for so long now that other assets that are launching now, they don't have those 2 years of growth at those very low cheap prices. And so it's very difficult for other assets to be able to say that they're able to, you know, compete against this ecosystem, because it's had the time to be able to accumulate all of those, you know, the liquidity pools at those levels, at those funds, with the funds that you know, this taxable token, the 5% in and out, uses to be able to do that. So it's just like, even like an asset landing now or launching now on the market would have a hell of a time trying to bring itself up to the level that pTGC and UFO have been able to create up to this point.
Mm-hmm. And that goes without saying, you know, the longevity of the project too. You know, not just pTGC's been around for 18 months. And listen, guys, it's the end of April. I think UFO will be a 1-year-old next week. Yay. You know,
is that right? 1-year-old next week.
Yeah. So, you know, the project's been around for a while, and that says a lot too.
Yeah. And I think I saw a post and tweet that UFO doesn't, I think once it breaks a certain level, which is pretty close to breaking UFO, it has kind of thin air for the next 70% increase in price. So watch out, UFO. That could surprise all of us, you know, very soon, with a bit of a head start.
Yeah, I'm excited about bullish. I mean, about UFO. If you get anybody that comes to my AMAs knows how excited I am about UFO. It's number 2. Well, as far as which one came first, it's like they're brothers. They're twin brothers. The one was just happened to be born like 6 months after the other. This is crypto, so weird things happen. But yeah, don't underestimate UFO.
Yeah, totally. And I'd just like to say, I can see Amanda's probably going to jump up here in a second and have a few words, but yeah, everyone that's in this space at the moment that's listening. I mean, I think we all know, we all understand that buys and sells is what really shows price appreciation to the upside or the downside on a chart. But this is the only token that I've come across that at points in the past year and a half, pTGC hasn't required buys to come in for it to start shooting up. And it's because of the mechanisms, the machine working in the background, and what they apparently call a supply shock. So that's something that I'm really looking closely at. It's something that's happened before. From when we're at a $6 million markup and we shot to like a $230 million markup, that started that run, and it didn't require anything else to assist it, including buys. So that's my point there.
Julian, I got a question for you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Nick, do you see anything on chain that is trustless in the sense that it's not got a component where it's a trust me bro situation like pTGC?
Maybe UFO, but that happens to be the same.
Well, I'm when I say pTGC, I'm speaking of UFO. Obviously, UFO is a liquidity farm where people own the liquidity, right? So they can add and remove liquidity at will. But specific to pTGC or something like pTGC, do you see anything on PulseChain that's remotely close to pTGC where there's not some type of trust me bro component involved with it?
No, I don't see that. I think maybe, I don't see everything. Maybe there's some out there. Maybe there's some smaller ones, but they still have some form of trust because you're so early. Remember when pTGC was earlier, people, had the same sentiment towards it and the mechanics just work. So it's hard to know when things are small, but I think pTGC, like you said, is probably one of the only or one of the very few, definitely the largest, that doesn't have the trust me bro things going on. I mean,
well, I would argue with you against the fact that just because it's small, the reason why I got involved with pTGC was because of the fact that I could look at the code and see what the code did at under $1 million market cap. I didn't have to guess what was going to happen in the future. All I had to do was look into the future and say, if this much volume comes into the token, this is what this machine will do. Right?
That's why I also love it too that, out of the 5% transaction fee, a large amount of it is being auto done by the smart contract. So, the quote unquote trust me bro, like you said, doesn't occur because the code's automatically producing the results. And there's only the quote unquote trust me bro with the, 2% DAO funds, which up until this point has been benevolent and only bought and burned tokens are bought and added to LP based on the smart contract votes, which is really good to see.
Right. And I would also say that the money that goes into the DAO, right? That money can shift at any point at any time if any ball doesn't do what they said they're going to do with the proposal. So in that sense, you have things that mimic PTG, but always just put a win do, right? There's no for effect.
Mando, your phone's breaking up. You're breaking up. Sorry.
That's all right. I could hear what Mando was saying, and I think what Mando's point is that the trust me bro, and even I've noticed, and I'm not going to name any names on crypto assets that are out there or just launched in the last 2 to 4 weeks. It's not 100% transparent what if it's a tax token or if it's a token that takes any kind of return, ROI, and has an income stream coming in. They're not 100% transparent as to what exactly they're doing with those funds, or even if it's dare I say it, like an asset that did a sacrifice before it launched, what exactly they do those funds. Whereas this protocol, this community, and these two assets, exactly what's happening with those funds. The exact spread, the makeup, the execution, and on top of that, what Mando, before he fully broke up, what he was also saying was it's adaptable. So markets change, and that's where most other cryptos die because they can't adapt. But this ecosystem and pTGC with UFO and the decisions of the DAO, that it can adapt, and it has adapted, and I think that's an absolute killer trade.
Yep, I agree. And to touch briefly on what you mentioned there, there's sacrifices going on PulseChain because everybody, says, well, that's what Richard Hart did. In my opinion, this doesn't really have to do with pTGC or anything else. The sacrifice structure on PulseChain is very flawed. They usually do unlimited sacrifices. They're very vague on what they're doing because they think, quote unquote, they're going to get big enough that the SEC is going to go after them. It's a lot of promises, a lot of trust me bro, and it's not the proper structure. So you're better off looking at pump tires. Maybe you find, a needle in the haystack, kind of like a teddy bear, in my opinion, and they created the liquidity, whatever. B, you can find your grassroots approach, mathematically functioning projects like pTGC and UFO and some of the other projects that have been launched from that web. Or C, PulseChain needs to get more realistic. If projects needs funds, they need to present documentation, and they need to do lower pre-sale raises with set token vesting, low FDVs, and high floats. That's the success for projects. So you're sacrificing your funds for non-transparent, vague promises where they say they don't owe you anything. If you're going to invest in pre-sales, you need to look for documentation, white papers, speculative scope, like what they're going to do. You needed to launch with a very low FDV. You needed to launch with a very high float, meaning large percentage of the tokens need to be in liquidity or out in the hand of the market. And that's what you need to look for. And that's where I think there's a flaw in PulseChain. And that's holding back PulseChain a little bit too. Yes, we know SEC was looming. Yes, we know the PDI debacle is looming. But also these sacrifices, every single one of them has failed. And what does that do? That extracts the funds from the many and gives it to the few. And ultimately, the few take the money out of PulseChain and pay their own bills or live their own life. And that slows down PulseChain, that slowed down Ethereum, that slowed down BSC over the years. I've seen it over and over again. It's just like leverage trading. So be careful where you are putting your money, who you are quote unquote sacrificing your money to. And if you want to get in the pre-sale game to try to make those big gains, what I mentioned earlier is what you need to look for. So, I think several options of PulseChain. And right now, the sacrifice thing is the worst and lowest option, and it just hasn't proved to be successful. I mean, arguably, the blue chips haven't even been successful with the sacrifice. You can't even argue with me about that. So, let's pivot. Let's keep doing what we're doing with real project creation, real volume generation, and real, smart contracts doing no trust me, bro stuff. And those are the projects we're starting to see success on the chain. And the more of those that come in, the more users we can onboard, the more funds we can keep in PulseChain, and then the more, exciting tech that can be developed out. And we get a bull market like ETH and BSC saw, where there's so much new innovation in DeFi that you will need to start peeling off profits here and there to try to chase some shiny objects and find this new, this new golden goose on the chain as things develop. But we're just not there yet, and I don't think the sacrifice phase is really the answer to that.
It's a good point, Nick. Like, I didn't think of it that way. The fact is, if you take a step back again and just look at PulseChain as a whole, the whole ecosystem, the layer one, and everything built on it by separate founders of separate projects, there's really not a hell of a lot of new capital flowing in until we hit the next straps of the bull market. So therefore, you do math real quickly and work out that it's the same investors, the 200, 250,000 investors in PulseChain, the ecosystem at the moment, that are slushing their money around, and really it's just, it's where people are feeling more either bullish or confident to put their capital at the moment. So, and that probably plays in a little bit to, maybe people, starting to take profits a little bit on something that's done so many gains like pTGC and UFO, and they might see it, that they might be a little bit more degen in their type of investment strategy or their thinking, and they are chasing those newer shinier objects, and they're looking at pTGC and UFO, and they're looking, and they're like, what, a $90 million market cap seems like a pretty big market cap to me if I want to play around on a $500,000 market cap coin or a $1 million market cap coin, and they think in their own mind that the $1 million market cap coin can do 1,000 times or more X's than the $100 million market cap coin, where we actually know that that's not the case, and it's all about the strength and how the asset actually operates, and why people want to buy it in the first place and why they want to hold it, that it ends up giving it that price appreciation eventually, and then it's more than just one thing that does that. So that could be another reason why it comes into it. Yeah, Mando.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, man, I can hear you now. Much clearer.
Yeah, so this is very important. This is a very important conversation where we are. It's so obvious that the Gray's bank of smart contracts is just so impressive, right? It's why everybody wants to try to copy it, and that's fine. We all know that, right? But I was giving you a set of questions earlier because they're important to ask, Do you see anything out there that doesn't have a Trust Me Bro component, right? I don't. Now, I came from, as an administrator with RH, in direct communication with RH, back even before Hex deployed, as somebody who was involved with the AA day one, during the sacrifices, was an admin the whole way through. I know the culture of this blockchain better than most people and the whole journey of it, right? So it's important to have context. We're at a point right now on chain where it's just like you said, there's not a lot of extra money flowing into the chain right now. And until Richard's cores start to move up, it's just a big circle jerk, right? So it's complete player versus player. I want to go and get as much attention from the people who we know do have money as possible, right? So let's create something and say, hey, this is the next best that thing. This is the next best this thing. This is the next best this thing. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But you have to ask yourself the real questions instead of being emotional about, oh, I'm going to miss out on the next 20x. Here's reality. Look at what's on chain. This is all that I do, is look at what's on chain. This is literally my full-time job, doing market analysis on what's deploying on my blockchain. And I say my blockchain because I helped deploy it, I helped develop it, I helped do everything for it from day one. So I care about what's coming on it, right? But when you look at what's actually deploying on PulseChain, it's pretty much all meme coins. And then you have the access system, and you have the UpX, Validator X system, and then you have, pTGC system, and then you have a bunch of meme coins. And then you have all these things that took sacrifices that none of them worked. Every single one of them didn't work. I think, to be honest with you, the most successful sacrifice on PulseChain, as crazy as it sounds, was the 9mm sacrifice with the NFTs. They actually made some people some money before it just went downhill as well with all the issues that they had.
Yeah.
But when you look at what's going on PulseChain right now, there's just not a lot of anything that's worth anything. And most of it is all got trust me components. Like, for example, Sparta, the guy came in, and I'm just going to be flat out. The guy came in and tried to use very passive aggressive language regarding, I don't want to talk bad about anybody or anything, and blah, 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 blah. And this is all fine and dandy and everything. But that's all that he did, is talk about things that he didn't like and missed and took that stuff out of context, frankly, right? So why? Because everybody on chain knows that the most amount of gains, the people who have the most amount of money, or at least one of the main groups on PulseChain, are people who have pTGC tokens. Wow, I wonder why that is. Because it didn't start at a $5 million market cap with somebody that did a seed round where everybody was instantly in a 10, 11, 12x. It started under 100,000 market cap. It was a completely fair launch.
Oh man, it was grassroots.
Okay. Now, I'm not in a trust me bro situation with the liquidity with pTGC. The liquidity can be rugged in all of these things. And let me tell you something right now. In the bull run, when things go up in price, when people have the ability to pull the liquidity, they do. They do. Why? Because it makes it lighter for the thing to pump. But at the top, it makes it 10 times easier for the thing to dump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
So if you have trust me, bro, with the money that's coming in, trust me, bro, with the liquidity that's sitting there, just because I just popped up out of the blue and I'm just some cool guy with a sound bite. This is not why I helped Richard Hart create PulseChain. I came aboard with Richard because as an educator, he taught everyone to not trust anyone. It was the exact opposite of everything that we're seeing on the blockchain, right? So what I see is think about it in terms of X's. Okay, you might get an extra 3X off of something compared to pTGC or where some of these things are at. Maybe it's a 3X underneath or something like this. But look at between UFO and pTGC. What has more on-chain liquidity? Which represents real capital investment, not some trust me bro situation. There's nothing on PulseChain, guys.
Amanda, I'm not going to call out projects, but there are like there's another ecosystem that feel like they're serious competitors, but they lack exactly what you're saying, and it's like chalk and cheese compared to from this community and these two assets compared to the other asset that I'm comparing it to, and it's the fact that the liquidity on the other ecosystem that find themselves as complete, competitors is so thin that it doesn't have the foundations there to maintain the course.
It's literally unsustainable, bro.
Well, Amanda, it's like investing. You know what? It's like investing your child's lunch money compared to, you know what? I want to make generational wealth. I want to make wealth for my family to be able to provide, for the generations to come. And I don't want to go and sell all my assets to do that. I want to
You just hit the nail on the head with the word family, right? I ask myself this question. Would I be comfortable telling my parents, my sister, my best friend to invest their hard-earned money that they're using to help their family into this thing or not?
This is the only token from about 9 months ago that I was comfortable telling people outside of crypto if they ever wanted to get in crypto, that these are the only two assets that I can vouch for. And at the moment, I used to be able to vouch for, PulseChain and obviously Bitcoin as well. But now I almost redirect them straight to pTGC and get them to start there and then work backwards. It's crazy. I know I'm a bit of a riskier investor, but I even go that way now. It's nuts.
100%. Prairie, at a 4x of the current mean of RH coins, with the current amount of LP in the entire ecosystem between UFO and pTGC, what would the total amount in USD value be for the LP of the entire ecosystem at a 4x from here?
That's a good question.
A 4x of the LP?
Correct.
For the
Combined
entire
LP
ecosystem?
between UFO and pTGC. Yes.
PTDC is 7 million. UFO is 8 million. That's 15 million. So 4x would be 60 million.
Okay. So at just a 4x from here, guess what happens? And we've already been there. So it's very likely that we will go there again and massively pass that. But what that means is that you're now looking at a system with 60 million in liquidity, with very quickly going to 120 million in liquidity, right? And when that liquidity gets to that USD value, that much liquidity is working for the token holders in a system that is trustless, that is not your keys, not your coins, that is exactly designed the way Richard Hart told us to design things, right? As opposed to looking at all being blown and tossed by every wind of crypto doctrine. So I just want to encourage everybody. Right now, there's a reason why you're seeing FlexNet pop up and Go Token pop up and all these other things that strategically waited for the bottom of PulseChain to pop up. Why? Because they know that PulseChain is probably about to rip, and this is the last hurrah where they can get as much freaking capital out of this community as possible. It's just a
Exactly
fact.
right, man. That's 100%.
And if you guys don't see that, you do not have enough experience. You're being completely run by emotion, and you're gonna lose a lot of money.
Yeah, the goalpost one is interesting. Like you said, the timing. But I use goalposts a lot, and they've supported pTGC and changed the logos and whatever. So, but the interesting thing about the goalpost one is, number one, they're doing an unlimited sacrifice, which I just told you 10 minutes ago. I think that doesn't work, and that's dumb. So that's highly risky. If you guys want to get involved, hey, the thing might moon. I don't know. Highly risky. Do what you want with your own funds, and I don't like that structure. Number two is they're on the record on Twitter saying multiple times, we will never do a token, we'll never do a money grab, we'll never do a sacrifice, we'll never do never, and now they're doing it. And I don't like when people go back, when they're so strict on something, and then go back and kind of change their word. I personally don't like that. I think that's not good on any front, whether it's in financial, business, personal relationships, or whatever. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, yeah, but on top of that, Nick, there's over a 2% extra fee on top of the PTGC aggregator that they use to do the swaps on chain. They've bridged out over $3 million, and I like the guys, but the truth is that they've also been trying to sell the platform. They've also been trying to sell the platform. They talked about in the post on the website how it's all about one thing over the other long term. But then why were you trying to sell the platform, right? So this is capitalism. Everyone is entitled to do whatever they want. I don't care what they do. But I think it's really important for people to understand that on a blockchain with $11 million of real liquidity connected to stables, and with just $3 million of capital injection, it 2x's the entire system on the mean. That when you're giving, they gave $500,000 went to P-Dye Matty Coin after he's already done so much fucking scamming.
That's crazy, isn't it?
So what I'm saying is there's nothing in my personal experience. This is my 4th cycle. Okay? There's very few amount of people that have been through it. In my experience, right now is the time that you got to understand where you're at. Know what you own, when you own it, and why you own it. If you don't, you're going to go after carrots. And guys, I don't care what you say. 98% of these carrots are going to go to fucking zero.
They just don't have the foundation. Amanda, you couldn't have said it any better. And if everyone listening in the room right now in this spaces, it's just, you can see it. PulseChain's at its absolute low. It's climbing its way back up now. This is the last gasping breath that every project is and can, try and pull new investors in to get their funds to be able to, build their liquidity or whatever they're trying to do at these lows, because they know once the chain shoots up, that's the money that they've collected, the funds they've collected are able to 2, 4, 6, 8x. So the time is to get it now. And if you're not careful, if you hold pTGC, if you hold UFO, if you hold those tokens, and you automatically start selling a little bit here and selling a little bit there for Go and for Finvestor and for whatever it is that's out there that seems to be shinier now, that golden goose, you'll never be able to get it back.
Well, Kuhn, the number 100 wallet holder in pTGC has 400 million tokens. Now, I watched that number 100. I watched the 100. It used to be in the billions.
Yeah.
Yep.
The distribution is becoming phenomenal.
There you go.
And what that means is that there's less and less people able to affect the chart, guys.
And I'm pretty sure, and I don't want to focus on haters because, I want to focus on the positives. We've got so many positives in this ecosystem to focus on. But the haters that have been coming out in the last sort of month to 3 months, have been trying to target and attack the fact that whales on this ecosystem are going to dump on your head, and it's only about the few whales that this ecosystem is only going up, and that's the only reason. That's so far from the truth. It's not funny. This is probably the bestly distributed, fairly distributed ecosystem in terms of whales and sharks and then dolphins that I can see across the board. And every other asset, has a worse problem in terms of, sort of leadership and maybe insider, not fair launch like we were talking about before, Mando. This was a grassroots launch. Like, I know that because I am on the outside. I was able to watch pTGC launch, my jaw drop while I didn't get into it, drop even further on how good an asset it was, and then have to collect on the downturns. So,
yeah, but there is no legitimate cryptocurrency that doesn't have large holders in it.
That's
right.
And
Secondly, let me say this, and then you can comment on this. The reason why last week I said that if you knew, because I've been watching pTGC since day one, if you knew the amount of profits that have been paid out to token holders coming and going, whales that took positions, and they have literally dumped their asses off on the community. Okay? Literally. There's no reason to cookie code anything. There were certain people, I don't even know who they are, you just track wallets, who got in early, and they just, as a matter of fact, they got out way too early. 10 million market cap, 30 million market cap, 50 million market cap, 50,000 here, 100,000 here. Guess what, guys? The system just bought them out. That's how powerful the system is. It just didn't care. And it bought them out in the most unfavorable environment imaginable with low volume.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing too. Like you said, no good project doesn't have whales, because how does a project have the valuation that it does? And if it has success, you're going to have whales by nature of people getting in early, holding, buying more. My response when people say, "Oh, I'm worried about whales on pTGC," I don't even have to go through, Mando, you take care of all the previous data and the top 100 and track and all that. I just say, well, why does the project that I'm talking about have whales and is worth $100 million, and the project you're talking about has dust? Well, that's
exactly.
The project had success and went up in value, so all the investments went up and became dolphins and whales. While
that's right.
Did nothing or went down, so anybody who invested 10,000 now has 10,000 or 5,000 or 1,000 or zero. So the creation of the whale is reflective of the success of the project to this given point in time. Now, is that guaranteed that the project doesn't go to zero or it doesn't go to 10 billion? No. Past results aren't indicative of future results. But the reason whales exist is because the price has gone up, there's been success, and there's been incentive to continue to hold the project. It's really as simple as that. There's nothing else to it, unless you're talking about right at launch of a project and the project team decides to keep 80% or something. If that's the case, those projects usually don't survive more than 1 month or 2 months. So, that's my response to those people.
Nick, couldn't agree more. Like, we're just a bigger target now. We've been, this ecosystem's run from such lows, and what people don't see is that we're the bigger target. We're copying the head a lot more now as an ecosystem. We're easier target. Like, a bigger target is easier to attack, and listen, if I was a brand new investor, I would look at this and I would be, I guess, a little bit skeptical on the side that, this thing's run so much already, but you don't understand the asset. And the fact is that the asset, with the way that it works, with the mechanisms behind it, with the fact that it buys and burns its own coins, the fact that the DAO in the background is constantly putting those token funds, the taxing funds to work, and it's so transparent the way it does it. It puts price, it puts demand versus supply without even having buyers come into the ecosystem, which is, it's fucking amazing. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, and the fact that we went to almost a $350 million market cap. We're sitting at 85, 90, kind of in between this, just under 100 million market cap, and people want to talk about whales dumping. You can't.
Right at the lows, man. Though, right at the lows.
But not only that, we're at the bottom of the actual blockchain coin like absolutely
the layer one.
just a forever down escalator pulling us down with it, and we're still sitting at $100 million market cap, right after a PDI debacle and an exploiter debacle, and people really need to understand what they own.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Nick, you know, and
chime in on this real quick, if you don't mind.
Please.
A lot of people bring up, like, hey, some people within pTGC have decent bags. You need to watch out for them dumping on you. The funny thing I find about that is we are one of the only tokens on the whole entire chain that has actually experienced a bull run, and you can actually see what the system has done in that bull run and what the whales or the larger sharks community members have done with actually seeing a 100x to their portfolio, right? Like, let's say a 1 million market cap. If someone got in at a 1 million market cap, well, we went up to like a 250 million market cap. Like, that's a 250x. You've actually been able to see in real time how this community reacts to actual gains. I think they reacted pretty benevolently. I think they reacted well. Yeah, some took profits early, some took profits at the right time. But you can actually see how the community reacted to actually making money, and you can see how the system reacted to actually making money. To where all these other tokens, you actually don't even have any real data points if they're good holders or not. You have no idea what they're going to do after a 20x. This is one thing I find still a little bit funny about even RH tickers, right? We still don't know how the PulseChain community is going to react to a 20x. But we know damn sure how the pTGC community will react to a 20x. They've already seen 250x. And they still see value in holding this asset after a 250x. The 20x is nothing. They believe in what they hold.
And then the real investors in this ecosystem, the ones that really understand what this thing is, they actually haven't taken too many profits. To tell you the truth, they've been accumulating and trying to build their positions, because you know what? We haven't had that big influx of new capital into PulseChain yet. We haven't had it. We haven't had the Trump real pump of crypto 2025, and it's coming.
Well, good.
And on the other side, sorry, Mando, on the other side as well, you've got the mathematics in the background that just pushes these assets up without that as well.
And what I also think people forget is, yes, PulseChain has, been green for the past 30 days or something like that, over that time frame. But really, we saw this run after the SEC. But if you look at the chart, PulseChain is literally just back to its previous all-time high or all-time low that served as support multiple times during this entire 2-year cycle or whatever it's been.
Yeah, that double bottom.
We're nowhere. We are back to just where the all-time low was, guys. And pTGC is at 90 million, 100 million market cap, whatever, producing APR for you and deflating supply. 0.3% has been burned in the past month. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I just people are, because I have people in my private group. We trade all assets everywhere, but obviously we're heavy in pTGC, and they're like, "Well, why isn't pTGC moving if PulseChain is up the last 30 days?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, it doesn't look like it, but if you do the measured move, we're up 70% off the low for pTGC. You're still getting your staking rewards. We burn 0.3% of the total supply." And if I look at PulseChain, we're just back to the previous all-time lows. PulseChain really hasn't gone anywhere. It's just getting back to the median of this terrible quote-unquote bull market launch that it's had. Like, it's not until we start actually going up from this level that we're at right here, right now, that I think the pTGC machine really flips on again. The momentum can come back to the chain. Maybe we start getting some new inflows. Because right now at these price points, this is just everybody getting a little weight off their back, getting a little breather to be excited that we're at the previous all-time low.
Well, it's funny you say that, Nick, and I'll give a bit of an analogy for people who maybe don't want to talk in those type of terms as well. pTGC has had an awesome run over the last 6 to 9 months, and just like a bus ride, if you don't have bus stops, so if the bus doesn't stop and let people off to then be able to let new people on, it's not a sustainable, healthy ride to the upside. And
100%.
That's just where we're at the moment. We're at that point. We're at a bus stop. I can see it. I can see people taking profits. I can see people taking profits for shiny assets. They're going to regret in like 3 months' time. or maybe 1 month's time. Who knows how long? It could be very quick from this point. You can just see it happening. And at the same time, the DAO and the mechanisms in the background of pTGC and UFO, mathematics-wise, are working, without human interaction, and it's just going to give that supply shock again. And that's why I love going back to pTGC at a $6 million market cap. Nothing was moving. PulseChain wasn't moving. PDI wasn't moving. Nothing was dragging or helping this ecosystem move up, and it cranked. And it didn't even crank from buyers coming in. It cranked from that boiling pressure. So, yeah.
Let's give Hitler a moment. He's got his hand up.
Hey, yo, what's up, my nigga?
What do you need, Hitler? What do you got?
I just want to make sure that you are still my nigga and I'm still your nigga.
Just get him out of here. Zen, please. Thank you.
Hey, Nick, I've been watching your charting over the last couple of days, and I'm really excited about those moving averages. They seem to be really tightening up there.
Yeah, we touched base on it a little bit at the beginning, and I know that Zen, some people with Prairie don't like to really speculate on price. We talk about price going up, but not in specifics. But I'm seeing the coiling going on. Obviously pTGC 70% off the low, but not coiling in between the 300 moving average and 200 moving average, and PulseChain showing a little strength here. So this is the same type of consolidation we saw on the 4-hour chart with Bitcoin right before its move that we just saw last week. And I was saying the same things. It looks like it's forming a bull flag. The measure move would send Bitcoin to 96,500. But what do you know? Yesterday we hit 95,900. So let's see if TA in history can repeat itself with pTGC. If this coiling occurs, PulseChain gets us a little bit of green candles. Maybe a Dow buy comes in. We go above the 300 moving average. You get the momentum, and you're looking, for about a 45% gain from here before you start getting on overhead resistance on the short term for pTGC once again. So, things look good from a charting perspective, a TA perspective. I know some people don't dig that far in the weeds. You're more about the fundamentals and the mathematics. But it's nice when everything kind of lines up, when you get good TA backed with good fundamentals, all while PulseChain still at its previous double bottom low.
Yeah. So Nick, let me just say this, man. Right now, you come from a financial background, so do I, right? When you look at the amount of capital that's in the LPs and you understand what happens at a 4x from here, when this chain just does a 4x, you're sitting at a minimum of like a $60 million liquidity pool. If it doubles again, it's $120 million. Now, once that happens and you have pTGC tokens, you are what I call locked in, because the price is going to do that 3 to 5 to 6x on the tokens, and it's also going to do that on the liquidity pools. Once you're locked in on those token prices and that amount of liquidity, this now becomes one of the envies of PulseChain forever. And if people don't understand that, it's only because they just don't understand how a V2 liquidity pool works and how liquidity web works. It's very important to understand that you're locking in now tokens that you have to value what the LP will be and what the token value will be at a 4x or an 8x from here, and what that means to a mechanic like the pTGC ecosystem for holders, because it does something unlike anything else that's been created before. And that's why people are trying to copy it with their iterations of it. I'll say this, even if other things tried to come out, even if something came out and it was even better, it doesn't even matter, because the tokens because the amount of capital that's in this system, it's like, is Bitcoin the best, fastest, cheapest, dopest cryptocurrency in the world? No, that's freaking laughable. But it's got the network effect, and it's got the liquidity, and it's got the trust, right? And that's what the pTGC ecosystem has on PulseChain. And the second that PulseChain makes its first big move, the people are going to be locked into this ecosystem are going to be very, very happy, in my opinion.
Yeah, it comes down to first mover advantage, the liquidity that has been allowed to be built up over the duration of the 2 years at the lows with the machine running, the mind share, and then the recognition. Like you said, Bitcoin isn't the best, the brightest, whatever people used to say, oh, Litecoin's going to flip Bitcoin. Well, how's Litecoin doing now? It comes down to where's the liquidity, where's the volume, where's the retail adoption that becomes whale adoption, that becomes institutional adoption. And that's where people feel safe to trade their assets, hold their assets, and the same is starting to apply to pTGC. And you mentioned on it a little bit about the haters or jealousy or whatever, and people come in. I even see it in a post right now while I'm in this. Somebody says, "Oh, it's a scam, it's a Ponzi, it's a this or that." It's like look. It's one thing if you want to think that at the surface level. Obviously, it's hard to get into projects. If I'm sitting here telling you I got in at $1 million, I got my community in at $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $6 million, and we're sitting at 90. Well, you're going to, as a new person, if there's anybody new in here, you're like, well, why would I buy this at 90 now? Because now Nick's been in here from $1 million, and Mando's been in here from 300,000, da-da-da-da-da. But at some point, you need to reflect on the fundamentals and see if it's still a good portfolio addition at current price with what you speculate the PulseChain price is going to be at the future. And, calling things an outright scam, whether it's, lack of due diligence, whether it's jealousy or whatever, is going to get you nowhere, not only in the crypto space, but nowhere in life. Take a step back, do your own due diligence, your non-biased approach, and do the research and figure it out on face value. And yes, there are scams in this space, but I'm telling you, a lot of people miss out on a lot of gains because they just assume things are scams. One of the biggest one was another RH ticker, which was Hex. I missed most of Hex. I wasn't one calling it a scam, but I didn't have the time to dig deeper in it. I was big on BSC at the time and what they were doing with BNB and PancakeSwap and everything else that was going on when Hex was launching. And I took at face value what all the influencers are saying. I don't like Richard Hart. Hex is a scam. Don't get involved. I read the headlines. I watched the little videos, and I said, all right, I don't have time to dig deeper. And I missed out on a 10,000X. And Hex isn't a scam. It's been around for 5-6 years. Price performance is not indicative of if something was a scam unless it's an outright rug pull and all the liquidity gets pulled, which we know hasn't been the case. So I just want new people tuning in, wondering, well, why would I chase this when everybody in here is up 50X, 20X, 90X, 10X, whatever? Because at some point, good value is good value. And whether you are early to the party or late to the party, it's better to be late than never showing up at all. And I think pTGC is a prime example of that, where every time I look at this, the mathematics make sense, the fundamentals make sense, the outlook of PulseChain makes sense. And like you said, if Pulse goes up 4X, what does pTGC do in price, in liquidity, and in volume? And what does that do for all the holders? And I think it's a massive potential.
Yeah, totally, Nick. And I'm just going to jump in there and don't think of this as you getting in late. Because if you really look at where we are in the cycle, and if you're a believer and you believe on how this cycle is going to play out in terms of crypto as a whole, a 90, what are we at now? $80 million market pTGC on a blockchain that hasn't had that push of liquidity come in or fresh capital come in on top of that, where a founder hasn't even really started, financially backing his own assets yet. Like, the upside is so big. And then your risk to reward ratio, because I'll be honest here, and I'll give you my personal journey in PulseChain over the last 2 years or since its launch. I've been trying to get into projects like pTGC and UFO at the beginning, where and you don't throw 100% of your capital into any one project when it's new, because you just don't know what it's like, and it takes you a lot of time to do the research. But I've had probably, I can count on my fingers, probably about 8 what I thought were solid projects a year and a half ago, where I put in a decent bag in each of those, and pTGC was just one of those 8. The other 7, I've almost lost everything. And it's just the fact that and this is it playing again. It went to a $350 million market cap. It's retraced now down to a $70-80 million market cap. And the next leg up, don't think we're going to be in the hundreds of millions too much longer, because
and here's the funny part, Coon. Every one of them said every single one of them, their number one claim to fame marketing when they started is, we're like pTGC. We're
right?
taking a cue from PTGC. We're the next PTGC.
PTGC on steroids.
Every single freaking one of them, dude.
Yeah.
They don't know how to market without connecting what they're doing to PTGC as the marketing.
Yeah.
Big clue.
And the fact of the matter is,
Hilarious.
and the fact of the matter is that they can actually never be like PTGC because the amount of time that this system has been able to build its liquidity bags and build that strong foundation. Like, who has $15 million to throw at a project right now to build these massive liquidity bags at these lows? Nobody. I know that
I mean,
much because
PTGC has massive liquidity with the cores, with all of the RH tickers that he did with Pump.Tire. It's got a massive one with most. It's got a massive one, a very nice one with Pump. It's got nice ones with anything that's got any kind of potential for even potential future when the chain starts to move, right? It's got the potential to add more. It's got massive distribution. It's got a mega amount of liquidity. At just a 4X from here, we're sitting at, guys, what on-chain has $60 million of liquidity at a 4X? I just mean on any blockchain. What has $60
none in crypto,
million
Mando.
on-chain liquidity on Ethereum?
There's none in crypto. Look, forget PulseChain. There's none in crypto. I've looked on BSC. I've looked on even like the biggest blockchain, like Ethereum. Like this market cap with this circulating supply of tokens to the amount of liquidity that's there, this thing is just, I've never seen it before. I've honestly never seen it. I don't work for the team, everyone. I am an investor that got in grassroots, not at the bottom either, that saw and took time to understand what this amazing asset actually
there is no team. There literally is no team. That's the other amazing part. There's no freaking team.
There you go. Well, you know what? I'm going to drag Zen's name through the mud a little bit here, and I don't know if he's able to speak or not. But even the founder is excited to see what this thing can do because he built it for PulseChain going up, not down, up. So apparently it hasn't hit its straps yet because we haven't been going up.
Well, think of that, Kuhn. Think of that. I mean, look at the price of Richard's coins that we're attached to. It's only dragged us down, guys. Prairie and Zen. What? I mean, has it dragged us down 100%? Like being attached to RH tickers at this point, has it? It's probably dragged us down 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that in the design of this protocol, I did not foresee PulseChain a year and a half later after PTGC's launch being literally 50% lower than the price of PLS when PTGC launched, right? Like, I knew that it was going to have a shakeout period, but I definitely did not think it's been this long. But the thing I've been pleasantly surprised about is in this unfavorable environment, how strong the machine is. And then you can think, okay, well, what happens when the environment becomes favorable? What happens when PulseChain's gates finally open and new people come to the chain? There's no new people on this chain in the last year and a half. We're dealing with the same amount of people. The interesting thing is the reason we've generated revenue is because the machine works. And that's why you see so many people replicating and trying to replicate the machine is because I personally don't know. And to build PTGC, I studied hundreds of projects on every blockchain pretty much. There isn't a machine that I know of that's grassroots that you can get in at the literal bottom that generates revenue like this, that works in this fashion. You brought up the bus analogy, right? And you're talking about the 6 mil market cap, like where that was a spot where the bus stopped, people were getting off, new people were getting on. But we can even rewind it even more. Like we saw that same situation at a 500K market cap. Like I still remember a conversation I was having with Mando. This is when me and Mando's relationship was like even just first building because we've met each other through PTGC. just through, brainstorming and seeing the machine and just asking each other, like, yeah, this is what we think it's going to do here, here, here. But that was another bus stop. And that was the same situation. People saying, why would you get into this? The price is so high at a 500K market cap. And that sounds laughable at this time, right? But people were getting off and new people were getting on. But the funny thing about some of the new people getting on is that it's a buy and burn. So it's people that are literally sitting in that seat and they're going to die there. They're never getting back up. And then the bus goes to the next stop. And some people get off and some people get on. But some of the people getting back on are going to sit in that seat and die there. It's the dead address. So then we're up. And it's funny when you go 500K market cap to 6 mil, right? That's a 30X, right? And then you go from the 6 mil to the 80 mil market cap. Well, that's roughly a 30X again.
Yeah.
And we're at one of those stops again. So mechanically, we've seen it like just do this and do this. And what are we doing right now again? People are getting off and some people are getting back on. And some of those people are the dead address. And they're going to die in that seat. And PulseChain is still at the same exact levels that the 3 times we've hit that point that we're talking about right now has been this exact number of PulseChain.
And then I don't look at I don't wallet watch or anything like that, but I'm just looking at this point now, and there's hardly any activity happening around on PulseChain because of the lows, and you can just see this is a bus stop. You can see the buys and the sells. You can see the people getting off, taking their profits, and then you can see people who really understand the asset. They're buying these amazing prices at the moment, and it's just a matter of time before the bus closes. The bus moves on, and the jetpack gets strapped to the back of the bus, and maybe at this time it grows some wings, and that's it. You never see those prices ever again.
I use this analogy, and I'm going to bring it up. It's getting the plane in the air, right? PulseChain is currently still very, very low, and I look at pTGC almost as like a plane, and we're like on the tarmac right now and we're getting all set up, and it does take a lot of energy to get a plane in the air, right? That's what we're doing. We're all getting our seats and we're getting going, and with the help of PulseChain, like PulseChain being the engines, PulseChain helps. The funny thing is we don't even need PulseChain.
We don't even need PulseChain then. The last time we pumped wasn't even with PulseChain, but you're right.
Yeah. But when we get this plane in the air, the machine can run so well on its own for what we've seen. Like what we've seen this machine do is our plane can just sit in the air for the rest of the existence of this blockchain, just pretty much making anyone that got on board thrive, right? Like pretty much everything you've been looking for what I could see, will be answered if we can get this plane in the air as a community. And that plane can get in the air literally without PulseChain's help. Just with the tools we have at our disposal, which is just the code, right? The code and a voice, the voice,
and then
to tell people, to educate people, to get them also on board, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's got the play of the utility token. Then it's got the play of a meme token. And then it's got the play of like so many different things happening in the background. Along with the fact that Mando, going back to Mando's point, that $15 million of liquidity, if that's what it is, between UFO and pTGC as a whole, like as soon as PulseChain does a 2x, then from what you're talking about, and then does a 4x, that automatically increases our market value and the liquidity pools by that amount, that multiple. So it's just mathematics. You don't even have to rely on the buyers and the sells. It's mathematics. It just goes on.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Just getting that plane in the air, we will be sitting at a market cap that's good. We'll be sitting at liquidity levels that are good. We know that we can multiply out our value generation from the system at those levels. And technically the machine could be buying and burning hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, every single day, with pretty much zero human interaction. And then if you take into consideration, if the PulseChain is moving up,
most likely users are coming in, and we have a system buying and burning 100K of value every single day or more or a little less, well, most likely they're going to find a home over here on this plane, right? And if that's with a portion of their bag, 10% of their bag, 100% of their bag, but it's, you know, it's very unique, right? The buy and burn to date is at some days keeping up with PulseX's buy and burn. But our cup compared to PulseX is so small.
So small.
And we have
so
to
it takes a lot less economic energy to push it up.
Yeah, for the last year and a half, we haven't even focused on the buy and burn. We've been focusing on LPX. What happens when we shift directions and we start saying, we are going to start taking up as many seats as we want and burn the tokens?
And burn the tokens. And then didn't you say that the DAO's only just started focusing on that? Only just recently? Apparently?
Yeah, so for pretty much the last year and a half, we've been focusing on building the LP. And just more recently, we've been focusing a lot more than usual on buying and burning, right? The best example is in the last month, you know, we've bought and burned 0.3% of the supply just in the last month.
Yeah, it's awesome. I had a comment that came across. You know what? I'll end with this and let other people jump in and speak. I had 2 other people come across on X and have a side discussion with me, and they brought up, but it's a tax token. Oh, but it takes 5% when I buy it, and it takes 5% when I sell it. And I'm like, yeah. And then I thought of that. I thought of that statement, and I thought, you know what? Over the last year and a half, and I'm a bit of a degen at heart. I like throwing, you know, some chump change around on some really crazy, risky assets to see, you know, if I can hit a little bit of a lottery ticket. The amount of slippage that I have to pay on a low liquidity token is, I tell you now, much more than 6 or 7% of the tax, or the 5% of the tax, and then the slippage that the tax actually taxes you on pTGC and UFO. So actually, you're losing more money on lower liquidity, lower market cap coins than buying this asset. These assets.
When I bought PDI at 4 zeros and a 5. I was literally pushing the price up against me like 50%. Okay, literally. When you buy freshly launched pump.tires coins, those pump.tires coins, they deploy with very nominal liquidity. You're literally, you could be putting in $1,000 and pushing the price up against you 5%.
Yeah, totally. You're a market mover.
So the question is, okay, brother. It's a tax token for 5%. Okay. Well, what are you buying? What are you buying on PulseChain? Because most of the people that say that, they're only looking to get into something if it's under $1 million market cap, because they think that the only way to make money is to get in when the thing just started. Right? But that's just not reality. Most of those things you get in and then they're just pump and dumps. Look at everything on the chain. There's very few things that have launched on PulseChain from the beginning that even exist anymore, guys.
Yeah, so true.
That's why when you're on Dex Tools, you always see the same tokens pretty much going across the screen that are like the legitimate tokens, because they're the only ones that survived.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of think about in the fee on transaction tokens, right, is I kind of relate, you know, a token to, in real life, like a business, right? And let's say, Kun, you are going to start a business, or you're going to have a share or a portion of a business, but they said, Kun, this business doesn't make any money though. All of the work that we're doing, we're going to do for free forever for the rest of our lives. And we actually have to grow the business also. And then you're like, oh, okay. So we have to grow the business, but we're not going to make any revenue. We're going to do all this work for free. You'd say that's literally impossible, right?
Right.
So that's what I find interesting about the
Well, how do I get paid
business.
then? How do I get paid? as an employee,
and
how do I get
kind of
paid?
The point is how to get paid. And really, the fiat transaction isn't technically paying you, right? That's not your paycheck, but it is, right? Because that's appreciating the token's price. That's what's paying you the APR for staying longer than the guy that left. That's what's giving the DAO the funds to constantly get into the next thing, to bigger the liquidity web, to give you more machines to make you more money. That's what's buying and burning and appreciating the tokens and removing the supply. So to play, you usually have to pay, or the game is not fun or worth it, right? If you go and enjoy anything good in life, it's most likely not for free. It's either paid for with taxes or at an entry fee. You don't go into Disney World for free. They charge you to give you that experience, to have fun, to enjoy. There is usually a fee for great products, or a membership, or even a public park you technically paid for just with your taxes, right? Luckily, the government has the way to print money too, which works in their favor. But we don't have this. But what I'm getting to the point of is the fee creates sustainability, right? It creates a reason for you to be here for 5 years, 10 years, because even if someone leaves, they have to make the foundation to what we're building even stronger, to ensure, or maybe not ensure, but to give the future of PTGC the best possible chance to survive. And let's be honest, if someone makes it 20x on PTGC, we want them to pay the system that changed their life, right? So then it can change other people's lives in the future as well.
Totally, Zen. I'm going to level with you before Amanda jumps in and say that I dipped my toe in the water when I first got into this ecosystem. When the penny dropped for me was when I worked out that this crypto was creating its own economic, financial energy, and then being 100% transparent with that, with the profit that it makes consistently, and splitting it up into APY for the holders, buy and burn for the DAO, funds for the DAO to use at a whim of a hat when they decide to, do whatever they want to do with the DAO, with the votes that come in, and that's adaptable. Like, it hit to me that this is like a profitable real world business company that is actually kicking ass. It's making some serious financial goals, and I think that's the mate. Like, even if you listen to KOLs out there like Sommy, they say crypto. Like, when you invest in crypto, you're not investing in a company making profit. When you look at a chart, you're not investing in a company making profit, and that doesn't depict the chart. Where in this instance, it's actually doing that, and it's amazing to see. Sorry, Amanda, you jump in.
I can't remember the exact percentage, but I saw a statistic on what percentage of crypto projects, products, tokens, you name it, actually make revenue to keep sustainable business going. And it was less than 5% of projects do. And that's what
less than 5% of projects.
Yeah, and Nick, the way that they stay sustainable is when they launch, they say, hey, 10% of the coins is for a marketing budget, in quotes. And then the only way that they can actually get that money is by dumping on their own chart, man.
Yeah,
that's what the Ethereum Foundation's been doing. That's what XRP is.
XRP, 10 years plus, whatever it is.
So anyone who says that just fundamentally doesn't realize that everything costs money. You cannot expect do you really think that SHIB went to where it went without money? No. Tons of marketing. Same Bankman Fried was pumping the living daylights out of that freaking thing with money that they were getting from an exchange. Do you think that when you sell your crypto to an exchange, you're not paying a fee? Do you think Coinbase and Gemini and Kraken doesn't make money from taking a fee? Do you think that it doesn't cost anything for the Bitcoin network to stay online? Of course it does. It costs them shit tons of money in ASIC miners and electricity and buildings and cooling systems. Everything costs a fee, guys. The difference with this system that's so unique is that there's a fee, but that fee 100% goes towards your benefit transparently, right? And if you're on PulseChain, I can bet your ass that everything you are buying, you are paying a 2 to 5% fee in slippage, even if there's no tax. And then ecosystems show up, you know, like I don't even want to say his name. One guy showed up. No, it's like, oh, there's no fee, but this thing's paying out 5% APY, right? Okay, there's no fee until there is, right? So there's no fee, and then they'll turn on a fee, and then they'll turn off the APY, or another trust me bro scenario, right? So what it really comes down to is, out of all of the designs that you can do a legitimate market analysis on, that's on PulseChain, out of everything that is here, there's very few categories. There's the meme coins, and then there's a few protocol designs to choose from outside of the core tickers. That's it. It's actually very simple on PulseChain at this current time, right? But if you want something that's the closest to a design and how Richard Hart taught people to build it, it is undisputedly the Grace currency. Nothing else comes close to it.
Yeah, and my whole point with that, and only 5% of projects, you know, having those funds, everything costs money. I've been on behind the scenes, I've been advisors of projects, been in the space for a long time, and you know, everything costs money, from DEX tools to CoinGecko to CoinMarketCap, exchange listings, liquidity pools, devs, everything costs money. So you need some kind of way to produce that revenue. And like you said, you either choose projects like Manta and fucking XRP and all these who are going to continue to try to pump the bags with the marketing, but while they're selling tokens on your head to keep funding the growth of the project over time. Or this is why I like reflection tokens, especially what I'm seeing with pTGC on PulseChain versus prior iterations that occurred on Ethereum or centralized exchanges or anything else, is you have this you know, benevolent reflection where a percentage is going back to the holders, a percentage is auto burning, a percentage is going to LP, and then a percentage is going to DAO that can be used for LP burns or marketing. So this provides revenue for the project, this provides revenue for the smart contract, and all of it is deflationary and sustainable for the long-term growth of the project over time. And you have the funds in the DAO, if voted on, to be used for upgrades or marketing or whatever in the future. Now, the DAO, up to this point, really hasn't had you touch those funds for that purposes, because benevolent team members or community members or token holders have paid a lot of those things out of their own pockets, but the option is there. And whether you believe it or not, these other projects that have marketing pools, team pools, whatever, they are selling tokens into pumps, killing momentum because they need to fund the next pump. That's the way it works. That's how these projects sustain cycle after cycle. And pTGC is doing something new with the reflection token side, where it's all deflationary and it's all being generated by the participants who want to enter into the project and who want to exit out of the project. They're actually funding the quote-unquote treasury or funding the future of the project for all the holders who are staying on board and the new participants who want to jump in. So, you know, life costs money, the world costs money, and I think this way is the best decentralized, on-chain, programmable way to raise funds, reduce the supply, and provide momentum and value for 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years down the road, as long as crypto market, as long as PulseChain market still remains a thing.
And to tap on that real quick, Nick, on compared to like reflection tokens on every other blockchain, the main thing that was discovered here on PulseChain was by connecting to many tokens, creating a web, you actually generate the revenue off of the only guarantee that the market gives you, is the market moving up and down. So you're not only getting that from new users coming in and old users exiting, right? This has been the way that these tokens have generated funds in the past. But the new iteration of it, this cycle, which is obviously, I think, going to change crypto if PulseChain does what it does and PTGC literally just operates as it's been doing. But if PulseChain is remotely successful, or if PTGC gets to these top 50 tokens on its own, it's going to change how tokens operate, because it operates in a way that's almost like impossible to compete against. It is using the same model that Coinbase uses, that Kraken uses, that Crypto.com uses, and we know how much money those companies make. And instead of that money going to paying tons of employees, the sweet thing about this is there is no employees. It literally has zero middlemen. So 100% of that revenue can literally go back to the holders and to the price appreciation of the asset.
Yeah, and to go with that, why I think reflection, I thought you were going more in this direction, why I think reflection tokens are proving to work very well on PulseChain versus some of the other networks is due to liquidity bonding. And the opportunity on PulseChain is very different than other networks. And that being that most people see that there's 5 or 6 blue chips or RH tickers on PulseChain, and which can serve as blue chip network tokens. So you got PLS, PLSX, INC, HEX, EHEX, and I think that I grabbed all of those. Versus other chains like BSC, you have BNB, and maybe you pair it with a stablecoin as well. A stablecoin is not giving you any upside potential there, just giving you downside protection. On Ethereum, same thing. You got ETH in a stable. On Solana, you got Solana on a stable. So I think the opportunity with liquidity bonding and how that generates volume and market maker interactions is very unique to PulseChain, because Richard Hart has deployed this web of assets which you guys have tapped into. And I think that's what's driving a lot of the volume, the extra fees, and the extra upside potential during volatile moments, because you're not relying just with the LP bonding of, say, ETH going up and dragging you higher. You have 5 or 6 assets that can provide that economic power on PulseChain. And that is one of the first and one of the unique things about PulseChain versus these other networks that I've been a part of, with ETH in 2016, 2017, BSC in 2017, 2018, Solana in 2018, 2019. You know, this is unique for PulseChain when it comes to reflexivity and the token tax ecosystem from anything I've seen in the past. And that's what got me excited about it. And I think that's why we're going to see this economic power when PulseChain catches on.
Well, and also keep in mind, like, even if there was, let's say, 10 assets that are good on Ethereum that you could combine to, the problem is ETH's already done 1,000x. Like, so think how much harder it is to get that next 10x to where we are on PulseChain. It's literally down 70%. A 10x from here only takes like an injection of $10 million, which is blatantly nothing. So 100x is very easily in the cards for PulseChain, and 100x on PulseChain turns PTGC and UFO literally into a monster. If you run the numbers, becomes somewhat unbelievable. But they're right there in front of your face. It's just math. Obviously, I don't know how many X's PulseChain will do, but the cool thing about it is we technically don't need PulseChain to do any X's. We've seen what PTGC does with PulseChain going down for the last year and a half. You know, if PulseChain just stops going down, I literally think we're set up for success for the reason that you said. The fact that we were able to bond to 10 sustainable systems, a lot of them having RH's hand in it, and he's been proven to not be a rug puller, and they all have mechanical features to them to appreciate over time, right? We're not seeing them right now, but mathematically, all of his products are mimics of products that have succeeded in the past, with a few mathematical tweaks to actually make them, in my opinion, better. And I don't think it's showing quite at the moment, but when the market picks back up and money starts flowing into the chain, I think those tweaks are going to start to become very, very transparent, and you'll see in real time how it really affects the price. And we're bonded to all of them at the bottom on a blockchain that's
$40 million, which is nothing. $40 million comes through that bridge. 35x on Pulse, 110x on Hex, 64x on PulseX, and 83x on Inc. It's a 75x mean.
Are you serious, man? Those are the numbers.
Those are the real numbers, man.
Damn.
That's what I mean.
Just $40 million. One person could bridge in $40 million, bro.
Damn.
And I
didn't
don't
know it
even
was
mean
that.
RH or OA or anything like that. Yes.
That's crazy to think about.
Right. So as far as the PulseChain as a community and PulseChain devs and Richard Hart himself, the goal is now how do we get those assets to bridge? And that comes with mentality, that comes with development, that comes with creating good projects, good opportunities, green candles. And then it also comes with just the morale and the camaraderie of the community. This last little bit, this dip, whatever, with PDI and Atropa and all this other stuff, all the infighting is good for a day or two because you got to get the information out there. You got to try to protect some people. You got to give your opinion. But over time, that's going to deter some people, and that just gives people more headlines for negativity of PulseChain. The big focus is let's figure out how to create new cool projects here, pTGC and others, won't name others. Let's try to get the gray cloud off of the network, which is what we're seeing with the SEC losing in court. And then let's try onboarding new people. That everybody can do that, whether it's friends, family, whales, how you act on Twitter, how you act and benevolence with your projects. That is the goal. It does not take much to send PulseChain much higher. And once you start building momentum, that's when you get in the headlines. That's how Solana
and Nick,
went from $9 to $250 because of what? Just because of the appearance and the headlines around the meme coin mint cycle that we got, at the end of last year.
I think that Richard Hart is going to reappear. And I think that when he does, I think that you're going to see a percentage of money come from Solana, a percentage of money come from Base, a percentage of money come from ETH, I think you're going to see people come and speculate with some meme coin money over onto PulseChain. That is easily in the tens of millions of dollars when that happens. He is probably the best marketer, the best speaker, one of the smartest people in crypto. And he has been absent because of the SEC stuff. And this is going away, right? I mean, if he literally just showed back up, I think you would almost instantly start to see a massive influx of speculative money coming from these other blockchains because they're agnostic. All of us technically are agnostic unless in this industry, unless you're completely like RH. Like I would say that I'm agnostic, but I'm more here just because this is my chain and this is my comfort zone. But I have no problems going to Solana or AVAX or Base or wherever to go make some money, right? But if Richard Hart shows back up, I think that people would be really, really surprised to see his posture and the amount of speculative money that leaves the meme coin space on a couple of these larger chains to come over and have some fun over on PulseChain. And that doesn't even start to even include any OA funds or any of the stuff that people like to talk about, man. It's marketing, and nobody's better at it than Richard Hart.
And I missed the beginning of this space. Is cool. Mando, you did as well. But I think that the team was talking about speculation on when RH was actually, going to come back and start streaming or whatever. What's everyone's take on that? Again, that the Interpol thing might hold back a little bit, but it could be back sooner rather than later.
Personally, I think that he won't show back up until we're back over SAC rate or something like a new all-time high. Nothing mega, like just a 2-3x from here, whatever it is. I think that once we're in those green candles, I think that's when he shows up. I don't think he's going to show up.
It's a more inviting space for him to come in.
He needs something to brag about.
Yeah, exactly, Banana. Yeah.
Well, he has a massive thing to brag about in the fact that he just whooped the SEC's ass, dude.
Sure.
And
you think so, wouldn't you?
Yes. Well, he does.
Absolutely.
He does. That's a major thing.
That's huge.
Unfortunately, a lot of these
should be back streaming tomorrow.
Well, timing is everything.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah, I think with any protocol, right, even his protocol, he has a lot more ammo than majority of people, right? He has money, he has influence, he has his accounts, he has the fact that he just beat the SEC case, but everyone technically has only a certain amount of ammo. And again, he has a lot more than a normal person. But he wants to make sure that ammo is used at the ideal point. So if he is sitting on his ammo and he's just waiting for the time to be right, maybe that time is once PulseChain is past SAC and we have a few months of green candles. Maybe that time is when ETH is passing all-time high and money is actually moving to the chain, right? You want to kind of wait for the ideal time to shoot all your ammo, and you don't want to shoot it all when there's nothing to shoot at, right? You want to wait for the people to actually start flowing into crypto again. There still is no one new coming into crypto, right?
Yeah, totally, Zen. And I reckon, with the thinning out of the liquidity, with him making the moves, with Hex and everything else, thinning out, and then dropping everyone away off the staking mechanisms on the chain, we could easily shoot up the SAC price very quickly and catch everyone by surprise.
Oh, it'd probably only take a couple $1 million. Just going over those numbers.
Yeah, totally.
And another thing is, we don't know everything that he's working on with his team in the background. I wouldn't be surprised in this event he comes out streaming, bragging about he's one of the only people to beat the SEC. His charts are now green. He has obviously money that he could bring in, which he probably would be bringing in at this time. He might even release a few new developments to either his dexes, like new farms, or who knows? You know what I mean? It could be a stable coin. It could be a wallet. It's endless. But most likely, he's going to come in with all this stuff at once, right? And it's going to feel overwhelming and heavy. But that's when there will be money moving into crypto, and he's going to try to move that money right into his chain, most likely.
Yeah, he'll have some smart ways on how he gets inflow in, his own capital in, and is able to start really getting activity to push up the chain.
And then, for our ecosystem, pTGC and UFO, what we can do in the meantime, and I kind of always talk about the analogy of we're playing a game and RH is on the team, but he's currently sidelined. But we need to make baskets in the meantime. Let's see how many points ahead we can get in the meantime. Because if we do another 10x from here, if he does come in and do, let's say, a 10x just right off the gate, well, pTGC holders are already up 100x, and PulseChain's only up 10x. If he comes in with another, let's say he does 100x, we do a 10x in the next few months, he comes in, let's say he does 100x. pTGC holders from this level are then sitting at 1,000x. And it's not 1,000x in a meme coin where there's not even enough liquidity for your own whole bag. There will actually be enough liquidity to back that amount of growth. Obviously everything in crypto is fractionalized. Not everyone's going to get their full amount. But compared to 99% of the things out there, we will have a better ratio. And that's very important.
What's always fractionalized too is, not everybody wants to sell. Not everybody sells. That's how the whole banking system is set up as well. Not everybody comes in to say, give me all my money out of the bank. That just never happens unless you have a freaking
Yeah, exactly. Everything in life is fractionalized. The housing market's fractionalized. Everything is fractionalized.
Everything is fractionalized.
Yeah. But having growth in the meantime, even though it's not necessary, it creates a huge difference for our ecosystem in the future, right? Even I talked about, and it's I'll go back, right? And last summer, when I started really talking about the X multiplier, I was talking about, hey, we want to do a 10x, and PulseChain could do a 10x. That's 100x from this level. But if you look at where we're at right now, we've already done our 10x. So we've fulfilled what our goal was, our milestone was from last summer. We're already at that number, past it. We've actually gone past it times 20 at one point. But, okay, we just need to put a new milestone in front of us. Okay, we easily did that. Let's get another 10x under our belt. Because if we get another 10x under our belt, when PulseChain does start to move, our system will be that much bigger. We'll be that much more in profits. We'll be generating that much more buy and burns. We'll be generating that much more APR. So there's no reason to let up on the gas for our system, right? The nice thing about our system is we don't need to let up on LPs. That's like one thing I always pay attention to is LP has been pulled from the RH tickers to make the X's easier, right? But the unique situation that we have is we haven't let up on any of our LP pools. We've actually increased our LP pools. Literally every transaction grows our LP pools because we have the ability to do the X multiplier on top of his assets. It makes us it makes it very easy to do X's to where we don't actually have to manipulate our liquidity to get the X's that we desire, making it so once we get those X's, we might have, if you look at pTGC and UFO's liquidity compared to, let's say, Hex, we're probably sitting on more liquidity than even Hex at this point. But we're a fraction of the size. So when those X's do come, it will be nice to sit at the top and see that we have some of the largest liquidity pools, the actual value backing the system, comparatively to possibly even PulseX. You know what I mean? I'm saying that the amount of liquidity that we could have for our users and backing the protocol might be very great comparatively to other things out there. And very uniquely, our liquidity is actually used to generate revenue. So there's an actual reason for it to exist besides a cash register just for users to enter in and out.
So here's the math, Zen. To do a 10x on pTGC from the current price, we need $8.3 million of buy-side liquidity to come in. $8.3 million. To do another 10x without RH cores doing anything. Now, at the current rate that the system is generating revenue at the bottom with no volume, with very low volume, I don't know how long it would take to get $8.3 million into the system if everything just goes toward a buy and burn. But I can't imagine that it would be a massive amount of time. So if you think about that, to do a 10x, it's $8.3 million.
Yeah, so $20,000 a day, $8 million, that's 400 days, right? So over a year at $20,000, but
yeah, I mean that's just not a lot of time. I mean, sure, but I'm just saying that's with everything as it is right now, with everything basically dead, right?
Yeah, and what you're saying, Adam, is that if we do that 10x and we get that amount in for just for just this ecosystem to do a 10x, but then PulseChain does that 10x, that's where Zen's like, well, that's mathematically, that's not my opinion. Mathematically, that's your 100x.
Okay,
yeah,
so just make it $3 million. At $3 million, it's a 3x.
Yeah,
right?
it's $3 million. Yeah, that's a 30x.
Well, and that's only PulseChain doing a 10x. 10x from here is literally just all-time highs of PulseChain. If PulseChain only hits all-time highs, PulseChain is ultimately, in my opinion, a flop. I believe, let's say a 20x, right? A 20x, and then if we could do that 10x against PulseChain, we're at a 200x from these levels. And we'll have,
and then let's say most or a few of the other tokens that you've decided, the DAO's decided to pair liquidity with, they end up doing, because they're a meme coin, they do like 150x, or they do a 200 or 300x. Then that slingshots us even further.
This is the same exact strategy we used at every single level, from a 500K market cap to the 6 mil market cap.
more speculative plays outperform the blockchain. Obviously not hard. The blockchain hasn't done anything, but we've gotten X's from these speculative plays. You know, in the past it was PDI. We've currently kind of cut that tie due to, you know, the exploiting and Richard saying to pull the LP. But at that time, he was moving money the most in pump. So that was a good indicator to us, like, hey, let's do what he's doing, right? Let's follow. And if that does the same, if most does more X's than PulseChain, let's say PulseChain does a 10X and most does a 30X, obviously very easy. Most has very little liquidity compared to PulseChain. We are an X multiplier on that also. We don't only have the reflexivity of Pulse, we have the reflexivity of PulseX, we have the reflexivity of Hex, we have the reflexivity of Most, we have the reflexivity of
Teddy and Pump.
Teddy.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's a list of like 20 tokens.
That's it, man. And then what about the fact that you were saying before about our liquidity pools being so thick and so big, and then, you know, PulseChain just does say a 3x or a 5x or a 10x, whatever it is, does, and that, so they're automatically, mathematically, it increases our liquidity pools by that much. That means then PulseX, the routing of buys and sells, they're actually starting to use our liquidity pools as, you know, the pooling of money to perform those buys and sells. PulseX is actually using us because we've got huge liquidity pools. Therefore, then correct me if I'm wrong, Zen. I could be stepping my mark here, but then that allows our mechanism in the background to be able to do more buys and sells, the taxes, and then distributing all those profits of the system back into the system.
The more share of the market that we own, the more value will be forced through our system. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, as long as the router is able to give the best deal to the end user, through that liquidity path, it will be used. If it can't, with the tax, it won't. You know, but the deeper the liquidity gets, the thicker it gets, the better deal that end user can get. So
really, we're putting ourselves at the front of the.
It's not the router necessarily. It's the fact that when the main pool shifts and our pool then becomes different than the main pool, market makers will use our main pool to fix it will use our liquidity to fix the other liquidity. This happens on every single blockchain with every token, right? The people who hold the majority of the market, even if they're not getting tapped into by the end user, market makers will tap into it to give the user the best price. For an example, if you had an exchange, right, let's say Kraken, and no one was using DEXs and people were just buying on Kraken, they would be appreciating the price of Ethereum on Kraken. Well, Kraken has a market maker, or a user has a market maker, and they're just interacting with Kraken. Most likely Kraken probably has their own, but that will mean Kraken will take its overpriced ETH and actually bring it over to, let's say, a Uniswap, and it will actually trade their overpriced ETH for cheaper ETH and bring it right back, making it to where they're not only making money on the user buying from Kraken, but they're making money on that user pushing the price up and then them just going to the cheaper source and buying it. Just like in real life, if you have a user saying, I'm willing to buy this tile they're doing their house for $100 a square foot, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll sell it to you for $100 a square foot because I can get this tile for $50 for a square foot from the main distributor, right? And then you're making the arbitrage. It's literally the same exact thing, just on blockchain.
So let's say, for argument's sake, then, Zen, Amando, and Banana, jump in here as well if I'm overstepping the mark, but let's say that PulseChain does a 5x and our liquidity pools 5 times where they are now, and where they currently are is between UFO and pTGC together. It's about $15 million in liquidity. And let's say that we get a scenario, which will never happen, but let's say it's a scenario where, worst case, we get no buys and sells for a period of time. You're telling me that in the background, because PulseX is deciding to use these huge liquidity pools that are owned by pTGC and UFO, that the mechanism, in the background is actually buying and burning.
It's not PulseX. It's not PulseX. It's market makers.
It's market makers, sorry. Market makers.
Right.
Not the
and that's why I'm trying to make the distinction between PulseX auto routing and what Zen's talking about, arbitrage bots.
Right.
They're two different things.
And then, okay, so the market makers, that means that if for everyone listening here, that at one point in time, we don't even need buys and sells, and you'll have the mechanism, the mechanism in the background still buying and burning and everything else that it does with the funds, through the system. It'll still be happening.
100%, right? That's literally the utility of pTGC and UFO. And as our liquidity grows, the utility becomes stronger. We're connecting ourselves to the market, and as the market shifts up and down, that activates our utility, which, since pTGC is bonded to Hex, PulseX, Inc., this eHex, PLS, Teddy, Most, Pump, the market of all these assets are not going to move the exact same every single day. So if you take out human interaction with our protocol, and let's just say Most goes on a 20% move, well, market makers will need to fix the price of the pTGC that's connected with the Most asset, and we'll fix it against whatever the least moving asset. Let's say Pump goes down, right? So now there's an arbitrage opportunity because the pTGC connected to the Most is worth more, and the pTGC connected to the Pump is worth less. So now a market maker will come in and fix those prices. Well, just like you were talking about earlier, in a meme coin that just launches, if there's lack of liquidity there, your buy and sell pushes the market up against yourself or pushes the market down against yourself, right? Because there's lack of liquidity. Well, the market makers deal with the same thing. If the two pairs they're trying to fix has lack of liquidity, they're going to fix that ratio with very little money. It could only take $1,000 because there's lack of liquidity there. Well, what happens if that liquidity 20 times? Well, they'll have to push 20 times the amount of revenue through that fixing to fix the price. So that's what I say is every time, if PulseChain increases 20x, with just the current liquidity that we have to date, market makers will now have to move 20 times the amount of money to fix the price. And market makers will decide to do that because the market maker is now making 20 times the amount of money, and we're making 20 times the amount of money. So it becomes a symbiotic relationship to where we're providing a service to the market, the liquidity, and the market maker is providing a service to us, fixing the prices. And then we make a fee off of that.
And remember, up to this point, there's been a window of opportunity where the obvious focus was on building a massive liquidity web.
Yep.
But at this point in the market, there really isn't any of that left. Okay? There's nothing left to connect to that we don't already own that has not had a massive market analysis done on it and a position already taken for future potential revenues, right? So we're at a point now where there's nothing left to attach to that's worth of crap, and you have to do something with the value that's coming in.
So we're switching to buy and burn, are we? On the down.
So what I'm saying is that so there's always going to be like a nice pool of pulse sitting there in order to take advantage of anything legitimate that does pop up, right? Because you're always going to want to have some massive firepower to instantly pop into something and then pop an LP in there. But at this point, it's definitely there's we're running into a transitional period.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
That's the other awesome thing about these assets is it's so transparent with the funds of the DAO and then the adaptability of what the DAO can do with those funds to make sure that it's using those funds in the most appropriate way. that I don't know how others can even hold a candle to this ecosystem when they try and say that they're, better than pTGC or doing it better than pTGC because of this, that, and the other, but then there's no transparency.
The thing that I think is overlooked real quick about the DAO is the fact of how decentralized it really is, right? Like, we currently have never had an issue with someone not acting in behalf of the community properly. But let's say very, very quickly, let's say if one proposal went through and someone didn't act properly, very quickly that the people who actually look at the DAO can make that note and say, this person didn't act benevolently for the ecosystem. We no longer will let them pass proposals. They've now hurt the system. But in other protocols, the funds aren't landing in a smart contract where the community can actually access those funds and act on behalf of their own backs. They're landing on behalf of a single person that you have to kneel to do what you want them to do for your best interests. And that's very, very important. With the system, you don't have to kneel to one person as the god of the protocol to act in your best interest. Very easily, you can say that person didn't act in my interest. I can at least vote down on it on the blockchain. I can also talk to my community and say, hey, I didn't like that. Like, I want to adjust. And you could technically vote or make proposals and so on and so forth and take action with that. And like we were talking about earlier, is in the last year and a half, we've actually been able to spread the supply out to so many people that really one person can't control the whole system. Two people can come together and say, hey, I don't like that. Let's vote that down. Hey, I don't like that. Let's vote that down. Hey, I like this. Let's create a proposal. And I think that's super important for long-term growth, because one thing that we know with our protocol is what the protocol does at a 250x, right? We've hit those levels. The protocol never even veered its direction. It literally acted the same way it's acted the whole time. But with a protocol where you don't have it, like a lot of these protocols haven't experienced a 250x, so you don't even know how they're going to act at that point. But you don't know if once it does a 250x, if that person necessarily is going to still care about the protocol as much. They might just want some of that money, right? Or you really don't know, because it's landing in their wallet. It's not landing in a smart contract that any community member could technically interact with code and access. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Dan.
And going on, Nick was saying this about the sacrifices. I think the sacrifice to RH is a lot different because he already has value. He already had money. I find it very interesting to sacrifice to people who don't have money because of this reason. Their whole reason to make the protocol succeed is now out the window. You literally just gave them all the money, and they don't even need the protocol that they're building with that money to succeed now, because you literally paid them before the job was done.
Yeah.
Have you ever paid someone in real life before the job is done? They never finished the job.
It's a crazy model. I work in property development, and where you have, any industry where you have
there's contractors
coming in
there's
and do their work.
There's everything.
You don't pay. You only pay progress work. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't pay anything over.
So in the real world, bro, you can finish. Like my brother-in-law owns a massive. What is it? Where he moves all the dirt. Excavation company.
Oh yeah, civil company. Yeah.
Dude, he can finish the work and not even get paid 6 to 12 months later.
Yeah, and that's
here
that's
it's like, give me $5 million. I promise, with no expectations, to maybe build something and maybe do something. Are you out of your fucking mind?
They're not out of their mind because people keep giving them the money.
Well, you're only stupid if you do it a few times. We've all been bitten once, but yeah.
But that's what I mean is the motivation to actually create a great product goes out the window at that point, because they don't need the product to succeed. to change their own lives at that point. And most people technically don't even care about the product in general. They're just caring about themselves succeeding. Well, you just handed them all the money. So then they're not going to really, what probably goes through their head is, okay, I now have the life-changing money in my hand. Do I risk this money on this product succeeding, or do I just go change my life right now? Well, we've seen the last year and a half what the decision is. They usually take the majority of the money and just go and change their lives and then put out a subpar product.
Yeah, and they use that small percentage of those funds to
30%,
keep
70% for themselves.
Yeah, that's highway robbery. Really, that's highway
the whole
robbery.
motivation behind winning the game is gone. They've already got the trophy.
Yeah. This has been a great chat, gents. It's 2:40 in the morning here, so I'm gonna drop off pretty soon because I'm down here in Australia, and this is why I can't jump on these spaces. I'm usually on the Z's in the middle of my sleep, but this time I was able to jump on. But yeah, great chat.
Appreciate you,
Yeah, see you, Kunda. Thanks for hopping in.
Yeah, I think it's been a good conversations, and a lot of stuff that people need to understand and hear was communicated today. This is a good one to share out, I think. You guys have anything else? If not, I think, are you almost to shutdown time?
Yeah, I'm 40 minutes past shutdown time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here then, too. Thanks for everybody showing up and contributing and continuing to contribute. And we'll see you guys later.
Yeah, thanks, Mando, team, everyone else listening.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
if you want to give an
hopping in.
opportunity for anybody else to throw their hands up one last time, but if not, call it a day.
Yeah, if anyone has a question, come on up, raise your hand, I'll bring you up. Banana, is there any comments on YouTube you want to run through real quick?
There is a
or anything
question.
you'd like to chime in?
Yeah, there's a question on YouTube from Bismarck. Why doesn't pTGC use Validator X to earn more pulls to buy back and burn more pTGC and UFO?
I haven't actually looked at that protocol. There's one thing that I kind of really stuck to, and it's worked very well for the pTGC ecosystem. And I learned this from watching Cult DAO back in the day, is they took a lot of funds they took in and actually used those funds to invest in other protocols instead of just investing in themselves. And I think with our system, a lot of times it makes more sense to put the funds that we generate with our machine that we know works back into our own machine instead of other machines. And that's nothing against their protocol at all. It just makes really little sense, in my opinion, to use other sources to generate revenue when our source has been known to work very well. And
I got a little piggyback off that too. The funds that come in, the pulse that comes in, it's either used to generate more pulse by developing out and building out a new LP pools. Those LP pools in general do outpace the APY that you can make with Validator X for us personally, right? So if you're, and secondly, if you're creating an LP or bolstering up an LP and that LP is making you more than the APY you can get, it wouldn't make any sense. And then secondly, the pulse chain that is being used to buy up the tokens and burn them creates more value for the token holders, in the sense of making those tokens more scarce, as opposed to just letting the pulse chain sit in a validator situation with something like that, making 60% APY. And by doing so, it also kicks out more APY to holders. So do you just take the pulse, put it in a validator, making 60%? Or do you take the pulse and you put it into things that are making more than 60% with the potential for those things to massively go up in value in terms of X multiplier, with those assets, like most, like Trump, like Pump, like all these different things, plus just do flat out buy and burns, which paints green charts and gets holders paid APY.
Yeah, thanks, man. And yeah, that's nothing negative on that system. I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure it's a great system. I just when I studied Cult, this is one thing that I didn't think worked for them, and that was something that I made sure was implemented for change on pTGC as far as being a DAO. But I thought that funds should be spent on the protocol itself that's generating the funds, and not on other protocols.
Yeah, it's basically just take your Pulse, convert it into their proxy token, which gives you, put it in their system. You're basically validating with it. And I think the current APY is like 60-something%.
Yeah. So this is, I'll kind of use this as an example. Sounds to me, and it's a great model, right? It works. Is with the bank, right? You put your money in the bank, and they're saying, "Hey, we're going to pay you this APY," but usually they're taking that value and they're making value off of that value, and they're giving you a portion of it. I assume this validator X is very similar, right? You're putting your tokens in there, they're paying you out a portion, they're also making a portion off of the value that they're putting in there, which is great, right? Everyone's winning. But I think for our system, we can do all that in-house, and we've seen that we can do that in-house with our liquidity web strategy. So it doesn't make sense for us to technically give up a portion of our APY to someone else if we can keep everything in-house in APY, buy and burns, etc. With a system that we know and trust and that works. I don't know if you have to give up custody of your PLS tokens. I'm very against giving up custody of tokens. I love with our system that you keep self-custody of your tokens the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, unless something really that's you don't have to give up self-custody, and can really outpace the APY that can be made in LP revenue generation, it just doesn't make sense for the system.
But yeah, I'm sure it's a great product for people who want to validate with their PLS, right? It's just, I think with our system, we're able to utilize it in different ways that have been proven to really work for our system. And that's with the blockchain literally going down and to the right. So I'm excited to see it go up and to the right eventually.
I think a big thing too, Zen, is when you buy Pump, when you buy these assets, you're not just buying the fact that they can generate revenue in an LP pairing, but you're also buying future speculation on the amount of X's that it can do. And
100%.
The reality is that X's always outperforms APY. It's just that simple.
Yeah. And then once they do the X's, they're going to generate you more APY because now there's more liquidity connected to that token, which makes it to where market makers now need to move more money, which now makes it to where your buy and burn is burning at a faster rate. Again, I call it natural selection or the alpha LP. We've been in a little bit of a downtrend to where we haven't seen any of our LP pools make a massive run alongside us in a very long time since PDI. But we've witnessed firsthand what that actually does to our system when we are connected to something that actually moves up more than 30%. And our system very much thrives off of this, and we have been able to create a lot more liquidity legs in this last downtrend, especially with the launch of Pump.Tires and the fact that RH, in a way, has kind of tied himself to a group of tokens that we didn't have in the last move. And I'm beyond excited to see what that does to our ecosystem when things start to get hot around here.
Yeah, I will, Zen, take another look and run some numbers just for fun, because I did it a few weeks ago, and I did bring it up to you. But just know that we do look into all these different things, and are always doing the market analysis on these things.
Yeah, and just be clear, that wasn't like a shade thrown at them. It's just, I think it's probably a great product for people trying to validate with their PLS. I think at this point, we aren't trying to validate with this PLS. We're trying to use it very, very strategically in the fashion that we've seen has worked in the past.
Any other questions, Prairie?
Nope.
Moneybag, did you come up to say something, or did you just come up to look cool like you normally do? Did you got something for us?
Our thing just lets people up when it's following them to see if they want to talk. We don't even.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you had to actually okay people to come up. I know what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Since we're following Moneybags, it'll just let him up. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Even though if he wants to say something, love to hear it. That's why we force him up. But I'll let you guys carry on with your Saturday. You guys have a good day. Like I said earlier, me and the wife are going to try to get out of the house today. We've been pretty cooped up in the hospital and in our house for this whole week, it feels like. So we're going to try to enjoy our Saturday.
Yeah, man. Congratulations, man, on a new one.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, man. Have a good day. Enjoy it.
Right.
Go touch some grass, peeps.
Yeah.
Peace.
See you guys. All right. You heard Mando. Go touch some grass. I'm gonna go touch. I'm gonna go touch some grass after I just get some work done. Work done, then touch grass. Guys, it's always fun. Woo! I was busy working on something about the grays, so I missed a lot of it. I'll just have to catch the recording. Risk to a personal 8,000 portfolio? No. Risk to the $15 million pTGC UFO protocol? Yes. Larger bags equals larger risk. Yeah. I don't know exactly what that's in reference to, but you're welcome, Biggs Mock. I'm glad that worked out. I didn't get a chance to throw it in to thank Hayden, but Zen, because I know he would appreciate your appreciation. So, guys, let's get out of here. Have a good Saturday, guys. We'll see you all around the blockchain.